Free Talk Live.
Welcome to Free Talk Live, and you can bring up anything you want here. That is what we do. The number for you, 603-283-6160. Phones are open as always, 603-283-6160. In the studio tonight, it's Ian,
Matt,
and Bonnie.
Of course, you can bring up whatever is on your mind. We're going to get into a story that we talked about, well, we teased last night, but we never got into it, about a hunger strike that, Bonnie, you wanted to tell us about. Also, Matt, you've got some more ATF insanity on the way here, the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms Bureau. What are they doing now? We'll find that out coming up here. Plus, Putin apparently gave a speech. Some people are saying, the Western media is saying that it is echoing Stalin and was very, very scary. And we also have the RT side of things.
It's funny because our government also echoes Stalin sometimes, and they never call themselves out.
No, certainly not. So we'll get into that, all of that. Of course, again, phones open for you at 603-283-6160. So, Bonnie, you had something that you wanted to share. You don't have it right now? Okay. Some sort of a hunger strike that is being planned, and at some point we'll tell you more about that. The number is 603-283-6160. So, Matt, you had a story about the ATF, or more than one. I guess you said there's just so much going on with them that...
It's just been a nonstop thing with the ATF the last couple months. Like the spigot is wide open and flooding everywhere, and it doesn't seem like they want to stop.
Wow.
Last week we told you about the 850 odd gun owners who filed Form 1 suppressor permission asks from the ATF, and they were denied, and then the local police were alerted that they were trying to build suppressors, which is why I guess what they're trying to teach everybody there is never go about things the legal way. That's what they're trying to tell people, I suppose. So this week, a big $1.5 trillion omnibus bill, which you may have heard of in the news, passed.
The one that was like thousands of pages. That
yeah.
And they gave like $1 billion to Ukraine.
Yeah, 2,700 pages. It was
I think it was $14 billion to Ukraine.
It was a lot.
Yeah.
It was a lot. They're just running the printing presses at this point until they're overheating. So buried inside this omnibus bill was some anti-gun legislation that got voted on by the entirety of the Democrat side of the government, and 18 representatives from the Republican side of the House also voted yay on it because I guess they didn't know it was in there or something, or they just didn't care. Couldn't be bothered to read 2,700 pages.
Well, they couldn't possibly, right? Because it was in a night or something.
Yeah. The Gun Owners of America, though, did send out an alert that it was in there, and apparently nobody listened. However, what the language does basically is it turns all of your local police officers into ATF empowered police officers, so they can do federal level work on behalf of the ATF
in every state.
And anywhere there's a cop.
So, yet another reason to leave the United States as soon as possible.
It is time to go, for sure.
And when I say that, I mean secede, not physically leave, but to actually have a political exit from the United States of America. There's no reason to stay.
Yeah.
There's no reason to be a part of this thing. I love how Daniel Miller, I believe, from the Texit group pointed out, if somebody pushes back on the idea of independence, just ask them, if your state were independent and were offered to join the United States, would you even consider doing it? And if so, why? Why would you want to join the United States?
You'd have to be crazy to join the United States right now. And I think we're seeing that with places that have been, courted for a long time, and a lot of people
like
said
Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico and Guam, and so why would CNMI? Why would we want to? Well, no, we don't want to do that.
I remember when I was in 7th grade, I had 2 Puerto Rican friends, and when I was in 7th grade was one of the times that they were going to vote on whether or not to become a state, and I remember saying to one of them, like, oh, what if you guys become a state? That'd be so crazy. I'm like, you guys, even though she's Texan. But she was just like, my parents don't want that to happen. I was just like, oh, I didn't expect that at all.
So now ATF can deputize any local cops.
Yep.
They're not automatically deputized, I presume. It's just if that's something that the locals want, they can now have more power.
Here's what section,
which they presumably will want.
Here's what Section 1103 of the Omnibus Bill says: funding for ATF to deputize local police to enforce federal gun laws, especially to undermine the Second Amendment Protection Act. Now, the states that have a Second Amendment Protection Act or Second Amendment Preservation Act are states that have basically said the ATF has no jurisdiction in our state.
So they're trying to go around that.
Yes, that's the way that the ATF is going to go around that, is by deputizing local cops. So once again, I don't care who your cop buddy is, he's not a good American. I'll take it that far.
Well, unless the police actually refuse this, and whether they will or not,
they'll do whatever they're told.
All cops are not good Americans.
I don't give them a whole lot of hope. They don't have a lot of faith from me in any of them. I get surprised from time to time. I get surprised by a cop here and there, but it's not. We track cops a lot, and it's not a regular thing to be happily surprised by anything they do.
Yeah, I remember the former police chief here in Keene. It probably applies to the current one, but I can't say for sure. But one of the former police chiefs, for whatever reason, I don't remember the conversation, why it was happening, but he explained that one of the little stars or badges or whatever on his shirt, on his uniform, was some sort of an FBI badge that he got because he went to some kind of FBI liaison training class or whatever, and so now he's in with the FBI.
They gave him a golden star,
basically. Yeah,
here's a scratch and sniff sticker and an A+ on your paper. Good
so
job.
This sounds kind of similar to that, and the only way this is going to be stopped is likely by a state legislature saying this does not apply here. None of the police in state of fill in the blank, New Hampshire, hopefully at some point, will comply with this, and we don't want you here.
Yeah, hopefully.
And I believe New Hampshire has done some things in that vein. I think there was something recently.
Yeah, I would like to see more of that too. I'm not sure how far those steps have gone and how they haven't been very successful. Like, we've had a lot of gun rights success in New Hampshire since I've lived here anyway. I've watched it happen, so it's been pretty good. I would like to see it be better though.
Sure.
I want to move that Overton window to a place that's absolutely insanely way off the map, so it can't be caught.
I think they did just pass, at least at the House. I think it's got to go to the Senate now at this point, but the New Hampshire State House, I believe, passed the modification that will allow people on ATVs and snowmobiles to carry a gun.
Great,
because it was an oversight in the previous. There was a concealed carry, what they call constitutional carry, that passed in 2017, and sometimes you mess up when you write these complicated laws or whatever, and they forgot to repeal that part.
It just goes to show you how huge the body of law is.
Yeah.
Like
even in New Hampshire, is relatively small.
Yeah, I couldn't even imagine thinking about some of this a similar type of thing in the state of New York or anywhere really.
So that's on track to pass.
Good,
looks like.
Cool. That's good news. Yeah. Another thing in the section 1101, 1102 in the latest omnibus bill, the NICS Denial Notification Act.
NICS is
a NICS check is when you fill out a 4473 form for your background check to buy a gun at the gun store, and they sometimes people get denied, and 9 out of 10 times, that's the actual statistic. 9 out of 10 times, it's an accidental denial. It's a wrongful denial. They turn them right around. It's not a big deal. You walk out with your gun. It might take a little while to get your denial flipped around, but they can do it. It's not that hard.
Wait, who's the one accidentally denying it every time?
It'll be the feds.
Wow, why are they so incompetent then?
Because they're cops. So the NICS Check Denial Notification Act is to launch criminal investigations into firearm transfer background check denials. So basically, if you're denied, they're going to call your local cops and let them know that you have been denied and you're looking to buy a gun in your area, which is not something they've ever done. So now it'll be standard procedure to do so. And
that would presumably, in a department that is not friendly to firearms, result in harassment for that person?
Or death, targeting, because they're cops.
The number here is 603-283-6160. We can continue more on the latest from the ATF and the tyranny they are implementing over there, or continue to implement. Of course, your calls and thoughts are welcome. You can join us here on Free Talk Live. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
When a lunar observatory detects a radio broadcast originating from Proxima Centauri, the nations of Earth discover their first contact with an alien race may also be their last. With the Proximans facing an extinction-level disaster, Earth must choose between sending a ship on a multi-year journey or allowing nature to take its course. Saving Proxima, a hard science fiction thriller by Travis S. Taylor and Les Johnson from BaneBooks.com.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it! You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
Are you tired of your taxes funding endless occupations around the world? Antiwar.com is run by people who understand that wars abroad become wars at home, wars on our freedoms. Antiwar.com is dedicated to bringing you the latest in news, views, interviews, and reviews from the top movers and shakers in the anti-occupation movement. Antiwar.com has it all, from thorough foreign policy analysis to interviews with whistleblowers who used to run the military-industrial complex. Anti-war, pro-free market. That's antiwar.com.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
This is Free Talk Live. Phones are open if you want to join the show here. We're talking about the ATF and their recent expansion of power into the, what was it, omnibus bill. Whenever they have an omnibus bill, look out.
That's where it's all going to be.
Because that's all the stuff that they couldn't pass on its own. as its own separate piece of legislation, so they just throw it all in together and say, we need this. And
then, they did it under the auspices of the greater bill that it was all under, this act that all of this stuff that's happening was under. They did deny a few sections of it. One of those sections was to give funding to turn state-level stalking laws into red flag laws. So if you are ever convicted of stalking, that's a red flag, and they can just confiscate your guns.
Wow.
An expansion of the Lautenberg misdemeanor gun ban, which is Biden's boyfriend loophole. Anybody who's ever had a case of domestic violence against them is denied. So that means anybody who is, applying for a gun would be in a lot of trouble if they've ever tried. They grant funding to police to execute red flag gun confiscation orders on behalf of the ATF. So those three were actually taken out. So that's
surprising.
Good. I am so, but what it says to me is somebody clearly had read this ahead of time if they knew to take those out. Right?
Didn't they have like 24 hours of notice on this or something like that?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. So it's typical legislation, but this type of thing, it all falls under a greater act. This is what I was going to say before. It all falls under a greater act called the Violence Against Women Act.
Huh.
The violence against, why can't we just have an act called the Violence Act? Violence against anybody is bad. You don't need to qualify it or you pull at people's heartstrings by calling it against, what about the children? What about the women? What about everybody?
When you said that they turned any stalker into a person who can get victimized by red flag laws, my thought process is, it just seems like there's been this thing that I've noticed my whole life where people are kind of trying to make women feel like they're, I don't know, more victimized than maybe is normal. And like that, so many women have fed into that, and now they'll go to the police anytime they're mad at their boyfriend. I see that all the time.
Well, the reality is a lot of the abuse...
Make anyone look like they're stalking you if they happen to just be going to your work or something and you're mad at them.
Yeah, so they tell the person who beats their wife at a rate of 40%.
Yeah.
Well, the truth is a lot of abuse at home actually comes from the woman. So there's a lot of propaganda out there to make it sound like men are the abusers, but there's actually a tremendous amount of abuse brought against men by women, and it's just that a lot of it doesn't go reported.
Or against women by women.
Sure, that happens too. Absolutely. So what else do we need to know about what shenanigans the ATF is up to right
today?
now?
Well, we need to remember the Form 1 Class 3 stuff from last week about the if you have a solvent trap, the ATF is considering that a weapon in and of itself, even though it's never been that way before. You're allowed to build your own suppressor on a Form 1, but they dinged 850 people and did a mass denial. First time the ATF's ever done a mass denial. So that's new. And other than that, I would keep an eye on the forced reset triggers that we talked about a few weeks ago. That's also under fire, but the company that's making them is still cranking them out.
Okay.
And still marketing them like crazy. So we'll just keep an eye on those things.
If you want to join the show here, 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. There was a story last night, Bonnie, that you wanted to share with us. You didn't have it at the beginning of the show, but I think you do have it now. It is a website, not so much news, but you came across this. How did you find this hunger strike?
Well, a couple of my friends were sharing it, and it seems to be created by somebody that I used to work with. So I don't want to go too harsh on it, but I read this and I just thought, this isn't going to work. And I don't know, maybe they should expand on this.
So you actually know the person who is setting this thing up?
The people who, it might be somebody that I worked with, but it's not one of the people that shared it.
Okay.
That are my friends.
Got it. So is this something that's happening in Texas? Is it?
Nope, it's countrywide.
Okay.
So it's called Hippies Go Hungry. You can find it at hippiesgohungry.com. And the first page explains their purpose. So here it is. It's just 5 paragraphs. The war on drugs has cost over $1 trillion, sent 500,000 nonviolent people to prison, and killed thousands of otherwise innocent people. 51 years is 51 too long. The war on drugs ends this year, and it ends with us.
There's nothing to disagree with there. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Just like the ATF, the DEA, And the various different state drug task force agencies have absolutely been harming innocent people's lives, putting peaceful people behind bars who have never harmed another human being. And the numbers of those people are in the millions, the people whose lives have been absolutely ruined by not the drugs themselves, but by the war on drugs. So I can't say I disagree with their assessment there, but what are they going to do about it to end it this year, which would be unprecedentedly quick?
It says, when I say the war on drugs ends this year, that sounds exciting, but you're not convinced. What do we plan to do, and what do we hope to achieve? It's more simple than it seems. November 1st this year, we will be engaging in a massive, coordinated hunger strike nationwide, and we want you to join us. There have been several unsuccessful hunger strikes in D.C. to end the drug war. Where all of these have failed in the past is sheer numbers and timing. Our approach is to have thousands of people engaging with us all at the National Mall in D.C., as well as at state capitol buildings across the nation, beginning a week from the midterm elections. We aren't stopping there either, though. There are over 450,000 nonviolent drug offenders in state and federal penitentiaries who would be up for a pardon from the president or their governor when we succeed. And we are getting word to as many of them as possible so they may also participate. Imagine, if you would, thousands of people starving themselves at the National Mall along with hundreds of at their state capitol buildings, all supported by hundreds of thousands of inmates across the nation. All of this happening the week of a major election. How long do you think it will take before the federal government meets our demands and state governments begin following suit? I think a very long time.
Yeah, I don't expect that the federal government is going to give one whit about the fact that there are people on the National Mall claiming that they are hungry.
Well, I don't know. This is a timely topic you're bringing up here, Bonnie, and I don't know if you realize it, but it is St. Patrick's Day. And happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody.
Okay.
But in Ireland in 1981, actually from 1976 to 1981, there were a whole bunch of people who organized hunger strikes. And these were people who were put in prison by the British government in Northern Ireland. And these were Southern Ireland sympathizers, Republican sympathizers. And 10 of them starved themselves to death in prison. And one of them, Bobby Sands, famously was elected to office while he was on his hunger strike, on his way to death, while in prison. He couldn't attend Parliament because he was in prison. And by the end of it all, Bobby Sands died. 100,000 people attended his funeral. And it created a massive political movement that still exists to this day called the Sinn Féin.
When did that happen? The 80s?
1981. So check your luck.
Was that before they started force-feeding people on hunger strikes in prisons? Because that's a thing. There's more coming up. Free Talk Live's video archives have been on LBRY for years. LBRY is an uncensorable, decentralized, blockchain-based media sharing protocol, and we're big fans of it here on Free Talk Live. In 2020, LBRY launched Odysee, a video sharing website to compete with YouTube, and it's really taking off, now with over 1 million channels, many of whom are disaffected YouTube creators. During YouTube's crackdown for not towing the government line on COVID, the Free Talk Live YouTube channel started receiving strikes and could be completely taken down at any moment. Thankfully, Odysee started offering live streaming, so we're now streaming live every night and posting our video archives permanently to Odysee. You can watch live or anytime on our Odysee channel by visiting video.freetalklive.com. If you want to go all in, download the desktop app at lbry.com, and then every video archive you watch, you'll help seed and keep it online forever. At minimum, we ask you visit video.freetalklive.com and follow us on Odysee today. video.freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks.
Yesterday, President Biden said that, in his opinion, war crimes have been committed in Ukraine. Personally, I agree.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken backing President Biden's decision to brand Vladimir Putin a war criminal, but he went on to say formal investigations are only just beginning into whether Russian forces have committed war crimes in Ukraine. Were the case to be proved, he said, consequences would have to follow.
I don't want to speculate about the future, but there's going to have to be, one way or another, accountability for this war of aggression.
Mr. Blinken said he could see no sign Vladimir Putin is preparing to back down, even though US officials indicated today Russian forces in Ukraine are lacking motivation to fight. President Biden, at a St. Patrick's Day lunch in Washington, used new terminology to describe the Russian leader.
Now you have Ireland and Great Britain, the Republic, standing together against a murderous dictator, a pure thug who is waging an immoral war against the people of Ukraine.
In Ukraine itself, officials are recovering survivors from the rubble of a theatre in the Black Sea port of Mariupol. It was attacked by Russian forces, with more than 1,000 people seeking refuge inside. In the city of Chernihiv, Ukrainian officials say at least 53 civilians were killed by Russian forces, including one US citizen. The UN says 3.2 million people have now fled Ukraine. Many of those refugees are heading to Poland, where the British government says it will now deploy its Sky Sabre missile defence system, a move sure to enrage Moscow. FSN's Will Denzelo is on the Polish border with Ukraine.
When it comes to Russia's response, well, they've repeatedly asserted that they want to see a de-escalation when it comes to a military presence on the Eastern Front. They want to see weaponry, they want to see military personnel pulled back from places like Poland.
And that seems increasingly unlikely given the scale of Russia's assault. In other news, there is fury in Britain after P&O, a major operator of ferries, summarily fired 800 workers, told them to get off their vessels immediately, and announced plans to replace them with contract labourers. The announcement came without warning. British government ministers say they have expressed their fury to the company, but Opposition Transport Secretary Louise Haigh says P&O should now face legal action.
P&O and their parent company, DP World, have several contracts and licenses with the government. They take taxpayers' money, so the government should be looking at suspending that right now.
And two other headlines. US basketball star Brittany Griner is to remain in jail in Russia on suspected drugs offences. She'll be held for at least 2 more months. And Kanye West has been suspended from Instagram, accused of bullying. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
This is Free Talk Live. You can join the show here. All you got to do is dial in 603-283-6160. Do you think that a hunger strike that is purported to begin on 1 week prior to Election Day, and according to hippiesgohungry.com, it will not end until all federal nonviolent drug offenders receive a full presidential pardon? I presume that would include Ross Ulbricht in that case. And Congress completely deregulates the sale and possession, for those over the age of 18, of tobacco, alcohol, marijuana, cocaine, and all psychedelics. So that is what they are demanding at hippiesgohungry.com. Is this going to work? The number 603-283-6160 if you want to join us here. Also, don't forget, you can go to our Patreon over at amps.freetalklive.com and help us out. Help us advertise, market, promote, and support Free Talk Live. That's what AMPS stands for, and A. Friedman has done that. A. Friedman is a gold-level supporter, which means that A. Friedman is doing at least $10 a month through AMPS. Really appreciate that. You can join up as well. You get some cool perks. You can help us spread the ideas of liberty over at amps.freetalklive.com. That's amps.freetalklive.com to join our Patreon. It's Ian tonight.
Matt.
And Bonnie.
Bonnie, you're the one who found this Hippies Go Hungry. You said some friends were sharing this online, and you believe you might actually even know one of the organizers of this, apparently. I get it. I'm fed up with the war on drugs as well, and I'm not going to tell these people not to try this. I mean, it's your body. If you want to go on a hunger strike and you think that these heartless, evil politicians in Washington, D.C. are somehow going to find some sort of a shred of humanity and then all of a sudden decide they've been wrong for, I don't know, 5 years or 5 decades. I think they said it was 51 years now for the war on drugs.
That's nuts.
If you think that these evil men and women are going to become less evil because of human suffering happening outside of their buildings, I'm skeptical.
They
that that's gonna
repeatedly
happen.
prove that they love human suffering.
Yeah.
What they don't like is when it looks like they are someone who can prevent human suffering and they stand back and refuse to prevent human suffering. Now, when they label it war, the human animal realizes, well, they're supposed to go commit human suffering because this is war.
Mm-hmm.
But when it's somebody at home saying, I'm going to starve myself to death if you don't stop doing this, and then they don't stop doing it, then maybe that would have a slightly more profound effect. Is it going to work on American politicians? I don't know. There are a lot of scumbags in American politics who just are sociopaths and don't care.
Yeah, I mean, look at how long they have been trying to do something as simple as legalize marijuana. Every year for the last bunch of years, there have been federal bills. There's some in Congress right now that would purport to decriminalize and or legalize marijuana, to tax it or to leave the states alone, or various different proposals are out there. Funnel money from taxes into anti-drug programs, etc. And not a single one of them is passed. Not a single one at the federal level has become law. Why would people starving themselves on the National Mall all of a sudden get them to not only legalize cannabis, but also, quote, and I agree with the goals, I just want to be clear, to, quote, completely deregulate the sale and possession of tobacco, alcohol, marijuana, cocaine, and all psychedelics.
That'd be great.
It would be. So we're not just talking about ending the war on drugs here. We're talking about a total step back from all regulation of even existing legal products like tobacco and alcohol. Now, as freedom-minded people, that's a perfect ideal as far as, I think the only thing they left out here was heroin. So they're not calling for the total end of the war on drugs, but most of them. And that's pretty good. I guess they felt like heroin was, the third rail of drugs, so they didn't want to touch that one. But, look, the fact is alcohol is incredibly dangerous. It is, according to Professor David Nutt, who was the former drug czar basically in the UK, who turned to the side of good and came out against the war on drugs. He came out with a chart that showed the relative harm of all products, of all substances out there, and alcohol was tied with heroin for number one.
That doesn't surprise me one bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's a hard drug that kills people. But I do agree with them here that alcohol should be unregulated. There should be, and they're talking about federal level here, so they want federal changes to happen here. Clearly, that wouldn't stop the states from regulating these things, but
at least the states don't have the schedule.
That's true. Yeah, you're right about that, Bonnie. The federal drug schedule is what, in fact, the state of New Hampshire, as I understand it, the state of New Hampshire just follows the feds. So if the federal drug schedule were to disappear tomorrow, all drugs would be legal here in New Hampshire.
Nice.
And there would not be a regulatory structure in place.
I think we should get more proactive than that here in New Hampshire. I don't think we should be waiting for that.
I
agree with you. Unfortunately,
even the most liberty reps will tell you, oh, we need to just do small steps, and I really don't get it. I'm going to try to talk them out of that more and more this year.
Yeah, that basically sums it up. The liberty reps are they don't feel like they have the political sway to even propose ending the war on drugs, which is a shame because that's what it takes. It takes somebody being willing to push that discussion forward and actually make it so that discussion is had instead of just nibbling around the edges that, can we legalize marijuana?
Or make it worse by giving the full control of sale of marijuana to the state. I don't understand why they think that's a step in the right direction, but that's what some of the liberty reps told me.
Yeah, that's what happened this year you're referring to, but they're not willing to put forward a truly principled drug decrim or drug legalization bill, and we just need more hardcore libertarians here. We need more people here. We need thousands more people moving here, and we need enough liberty people to where we can actually challenge some of these liberty reps at primaries and make them have a fight over who is more freedom-loving.
I love this.
In the primary. We need to have enough people to where we can have freedom-loving people in the Democratic and Republican sides of a race. That way, no matter who wins, it's a free stater who gets into office. That can all be possible. We just need thousands more people to make the move here.
Well, Matt, I am surprised by and pleasantly surprised by your optimism on this, the Hippies Go Hungry thing. But I mean, my thought when I saw it was just, imagine, like, for just a thought experiment, imagine Hillary Clinton caring that you're hungry. Like, that's all I thought of. But, maybe they'll care if it makes them look bad.
Does care about her image.
Yeah, if it makes her look bad.
Yeah.
So
I think that it's pretty easy to ignore a protest if you're a politician. And
just tell the media to ignore it.
Well, and that's really the important question is what level of attention will the mainstream media be giving to this? I tend to be skeptical that the media will want to give any attention to anything that could change the status quo in any significant manner. They love themselves a war. Mm-hmm. They love themselves fear when it comes to, COVID and crackdowns and
it's good for ratings.
All of that. Exactly. They want people to tune in, through the next break and find out what the scary stuff is. When it comes to doing this in jail, and I referred to the fact that they will force feed people. If you're doing a hunger strike in jail, at some point, they're going to strap you to a bed, they're going to shove a tube down your throat, and they are going to force feed you or, inject you or whatever it is that they have to do to keep you alive. They do not want you dying in their facility. First of all, it means they lose money, right? Because every body that's in the facility is an increase in the budget for next year. So they don't want you to die in jail. They want you to suffer, but they don't want you to actually pass away. So they're going to do what they can to make sure you stay alive. Now, if you actually had a significant number of people doing a hunger strike in jail, maybe then you'd have a chance because they probably don't have enough hospital beds and enough, tubes to shove down 100 people's throats or something like that. But what are the odds that you're going to be able to get that many people to sign on to a hunger strike inside a jail? I guess we're going to find out.
We'll see.
Coming up later this year. Check it out at hippiesgohungry.com. I'm a little pessimistic about it, but I want to be wrong. I want to be proven that this is a good plan and this is going to work. And like I said, it's your body. If you think that putting it on the line like this is going to help end the war on drugs, then good luck. And by the way, are they going to camp out on the National Mall too, or are they just going to come back day after day? There's more coming up. Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 27th through July 3rd for the 6th annual Fork Fest at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Fork Fest is a fork of the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which sold out for the first time in 2021. Fork Fest takes place the week after Pork Fest, but Fork Fest is decentralized, which means that there's no ticket cost and no one is in charge. All you have to do to join the fun is reserve your camping site, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 27th through July 3rd. There's no better place to celebrate Independence Day than around other freedom-loving activists in the Shire. You can find out more at the unofficial website, forkfest.party. You can also connect with other attendees on the Forkfest Telegram and Matrix chat rooms, as well as the Forkfest Forum. You can find links to those at forkfest.party. We hope to see you there. Forkfest.party.
I'm a little obsessed with My Magic Mud. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, the founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I didn't even know my teeth were coffee stained. A week's worth of use convinced me, and now I use it every 3 or 4 days. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, and I think it cleans better, too. My Magic Mud's available at most local health food stores, Sprouts, Natural Grocers, CVS, Walmart's Natural Beauty Aisle, but I can get it for you for 20% off with coupon code FTL20 at mymagicmud.com. FTL20 mymagicmud.com.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
Uncovering the secrets and exposing the lies. That's what the readers of freedomsphoenix.com get every day. freedomsphoenix.com, constantly providing the information, the real news about government policies, and the real relationship we all have with the coercive government. The real condition of the economy, innovations in technology, breakthroughs in energy, health, and computer science. Learn the truth well before it's admitted to in the lamestream media. The corporate media, nothing more than distributors of government propaganda, but now there's an alternative. freedomsphoenix.com. Constant news updates on the issues that affect your life in the most important ways. With liberty and property under constant attack, freedomsphoenix.com provides the understanding behind the propaganda, and it encourages the participation of its readers. Go to freedomsphoenix.com. That's freedoms with an S, phoenix.com. freedomsphoenix.com. The revolution between the ears has already happened.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
This is Free Talk Live, and you can bring up whatever you want. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. In the studio here tonight, you've got Ian,
Matt,
and Bonnie.
Free Talk Live brought to you by Bitcoin.com. Good time to go and learn about cryptocurrency like Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash is, well, anytime you've got 3 minutes, because that's how long the first video is over at Bitcoin.com, where you click Get Started. You'll be given some introductory videos that you can watch. If you got a limited amount of time, just watch the first one. If you discover you want to learn more, there's more than one, and you can dig in as deep as you want into this topic. There's some really important new ideas that you should get a hold of before you get into the world of crypto, and they can help you with those over at Bitcoin.com. Again, click Get Started right there at the top of the page. If you're not new to cryptocurrency and you want to get the latest news headlines, they got you covered over at news.bitcoin.com every single day. Fresh news and information there at news.bitcoin.com. So whether you want to talk about the ATF and their continuing crackdowns on freedom and the right to bear arms, or the crackdown on the right to put in your body whatever it is that you want, the Hippies Go Hungry website announcing they're going to plan a nationwide hunger strike that will be focused on the National Mall on the week prior to the election. Apparently, they're saying the election this year is November 8th, and they're planning on starting on November 1st out in front of the National Mall and having, I don't know how many hundreds or thousands of people they believe they can get to starve themselves. It's going to be interesting to see how this pans out, and I presume that as we hear more, we will bring that information to you. In other news, there's, of course, what's going on in Ukraine with the Russia situation. And in case you hadn't heard, the latest on what's happening to RT. RT is Russia Today. It is a Russian government-funded news outlet. And propaganda, of course, is what it is. But don't be fooled. So is CNN, and so is, every American news outlet. It's all propaganda. It's just not necessarily government-funded directly. They just love to, basically to parrot the government talking points on the air. So really the difference between RT and these American Western media is RT doesn't have commercials. Right. You can watch a half hour of RT and you just get whatever they want to report.
And RT is openly funded by the government.
Yeah, and you know what you're getting when you get into RT. And what's interesting is that there's a lot of these Western nations, including the European Union, including Australia, and now Canada, that are completely prohibiting RT.
Really?
And that's one of the things that makes me go, what do they got to hide? What do they want us to not be seeing? Now, according to RT.com, Canadians' regulator has now forbidden television providers to carry RT or RT France. Media regulators in Ottawa have formally outlawed RT and RT France on Wednesday, saying their programming has gone against government policy and undermined democracy. After reviewing complaints from the public, the Canadian Radio, Television, and Telecommunications Commission announced that, quote, the continued authorization to distribute RT and RT France is not in the public interest, unquote. Most Canadian operators had already pulled the networks off the air, citing conflict in Ukraine. Quote, RT's programming is not consistent with the standards against which Canadian services are measured, nor the policy objectives set out in the Broadcasting Act, said the regulator, adding that it was, quote, also concerned with programming from a foreign country that seeks to undermine the sovereignty of another country, demean Canadians of a particular ethnic background, and undermine democratic institutions within Canada.
How are they demeaning Canadians? How is Russia demeaning Canadians of a particular ethnic background?
I suspect they're referring to Ukrainian Canadians.
Okay, but what about the Russian Canadians?
Well, no one cares about them.
Oh, okay.
I'd say they're demeaning all Canadians by just imposing this ban against information. I mean, aren't these adults capable of making up their own minds and searching out all the information they want to hear, and now they're just knocking out a whole bunch of it?
Well, first of all, you're absolutely right about that. But the thing that's important to take away here is Canada is not a free speech country.
Right.
Canada's radio, obviously here in the United States, the FCC says there's certain things you can't say on the radio, but it usually is in the realm of, certain profanities, right? Certain quote-unquote obscenities.
Which is also baloney.
It is total baloney, but generally there's no prohibition per se on the topics of discussion in the United States, at least at this time, thankfully. So that's why we haven't seen this move by the U.S. government. It's one of the few Western governments that actually has not banned RT, but in Canada, they can do that. In Canada, the Canadian, what do they call them? The Radio, Television, Communications Commission, they actually mandate, for instance, that all radio stations have to play a certain amount of Canadian music. Did you know that?
I mean,
that's just what they do.
If there ever was going to be a law, there should be a law that everybody should be a Rush fan because, I mean, I get that.
That's funny because you thought Rush and I thought Justin Bieber.
Oh, is he a Canuck?
Oh, never mind. Shut it down.
So that's just one example. And of course, there's no prohibition, or there is a prohibition on hate, quote unquote, hate speech in Canada. So there's just certain things you can't say without getting criminally prosecuted.
Wow.
In Canada.
That shows you the difference between a subject and a citizen, too, though, in a way. I mean, there's a fine line there, and I think that line's getting blurred more and more every day as the United States become less and less a free country. But the Canadians have never really been. They've always been subjects.
Indeed, subjects of the Queen in this particular case.
Their property.
Now, that said, Matt, I mean, if you ever listen to a police scanner, you'll hear them refer to people as subjects.
Yeah.
So,
that's
I mean,
creepy.
Just because they don't actually come right out publicly and talk about people that way doesn't mean that's not how they think about you.
That's true.
So, the point here that they're saying that RT's broadcasting undermines democratic institutions within Canada, that's one of the things I like about RT, is that they'll let libertarian perspectives on the air. They actually had for, I don't know, over a year, Adam Kokesh, who's a principled, liberty-minded guy, liberty activist, great former Iraq veteran against the war. We've had him on this show a number of times, and he had his own show on RT.
Why did he get off it? Did he just stop doing it, or did he get kicked off?
I don't remember what happened with that, but he never said that RT tried to tell him what to do. RT never tried to exert any editorial control over his show. He could always say whatever he wanted to say. And the fact is, the Russian government does want to undermine the United States and the Canadian governments and other governments of the world. Now, the Russian government is not libertarian. They don't care about freedom. They're not freedom-oriented, so I'm under no delusions about that.
And if you listen to, I always felt the same about Vladimir Putin and Boris Yeltsin and Mikhail Gorbachev and all those guys. You always see their mouths moving with funny sounds coming out, but nobody ever really translates It's, Adolf Hitler. I always wondered what Adolf Hitler was actually saying. Benito Mussolini. I want to know what he's actually saying. What are they saying to get these people all riled up? They're clearly extremely popular. What are they saying? When you listen to Vladimir Putin talk with the translations turned on, he is a Soviet. That man is a commie.
Really?
I think he's an absolute communist.
So you agree with Sarah, our regular caller, on this? She believes he is a secret communist.
I think he's a commie.
Interesting.
It wouldn't surprise me.
Just because you put a communist in a Versace suit doesn't make him less of a
he certainly was a KGB agent, right, during communist Russia. Although I'm skeptical of this theory. I mean, not that I know a whole lot about the guy, but just recently there was a proposal in Russia to nationalize companies. Because of the whole, McDonald's saying they're going to shut down in Russia, somebody in the Russian government proposed to nationalize McDonald's.
They can't think outside of those.
But Putin rejected it. He said he's not going to interfere.
I saw him talking the other day about how it may have been old footage, but still, he's an old man. His convictions should be in stone by now. He was saying how property should go away.
Really?
Yeah.
Because here he said that he didn't want to interfere with private ownership of business.
Well, he's a politician. He's lying.
Yeah. Well, of course.
Yeah, and even China went through a phase of being a little more open market, and now they're clamping down. So maybe Russia's just kind of in its phase of, we don't want the people to starve, so we're going to open the market a little bit, free the market a little bit, and then they're going to clamp down again like China. Because, they're buddies. So I could totally see what Sarah's saying. The flaw in what she's always saying is she's saying that Russia just is a communist nation, and we're always just like, what do you mean? Russia is becoming more, free market. They're not like a perfect free market.
I wouldn't say that. I think they're becoming more westernized, but I would not necessarily confuse that with becoming a capitalist nation.
Well,
no,
certainly
I'm
not
really
market.
saying that they are, but they were going more that direction, less communist.
Definitely.
But I could also totally see that it's just the thing the Chinese people did so their people didn't die.
There's more on the way here at 603-283-6160. So RT banned in Canada, banned in the European Union, banned in Australia, and then, of course, taken off voluntarily of platforms like DirecTV and elsewhere. YouTube taking them off globally. They banned them globally. There's more coming up here. It's Free Talk Live. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks.
Yesterday, President Biden said that, in his opinion, war crimes have been committed in Ukraine. Personally, I agree.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken backing President Biden's decision to brand Vladimir Putin a war criminal, but he went on to say formal investigations are only just beginning into whether Russian forces have committed war crimes in Ukraine. Were the case to be proved, he said, consequences would have to follow.
I don't want to speculate about the future, but there's going to have to be, one way or another, accountability for this war of aggression.
Mr. Blinken said he could see no sign Vladimir Putin is preparing to back down, even though US officials indicated today Russian forces in Ukraine are lacking motivation to fight. President Biden, at a St. Patrick's Day lunch in Washington, used new terminology to describe the Russian leader.
Now you have Ireland and Great Britain, the Republic, standing together against a murderous dictator, a pure thug who is waging an immoral war against the people of Ukraine.
In Ukraine itself, officials are recovering survivors from the rubble of a theatre in the Black Sea port of Mariupol. It was attacked by Russian forces, with more than 1,000 people seeking refuge inside. In the city of Chernihiv, Ukrainian officials say at least 53 civilians were killed by Russian forces, including one US citizen. The UN says 3.2 million people have now fled Ukraine. Many of those refugees are heading to Poland, where the British government says it will now deploy its Sky Sabre missile defence system, a move sure to enrage Moscow. FSN's Will Denzelo is on the Polish border with Ukraine.
When it comes to Russia's response, well, they've repeatedly asserted that they want to see a de-escalation when it comes to a military presence on the Eastern Front. They want to see weaponry, they want to see military personnel pulled back from places like Poland.
And that seems increasingly unlikely given the scale of Russia's assault. In other news, there is fury in Britain after P&O, a major operator of ferries, summarily fired 800 workers, told them to get off their vessels immediately, and announced plans to replace them with contract labourers. The announcement came without warning. British government ministers say they have expressed their fury to the company, but Opposition Transport Secretary Louise Haigh says P&O should now face legal action.
P&O and their parent company, DP World, have several contracts and licenses with the government. They take taxpayers' money, so the government should be looking at suspending that right now.
And two other headlines. US basketball star Brittany Griner is to remain in jail in Russia on suspected drugs offences. She'll be held for at least 2 more months. And Kanye West has been suspended from Instagram, accused of bullying. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. Today, some advice for Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe, who has been freed from a Kafkaesque 6-year odyssey in Iran. Jailed on trumped-up espionage charges, the British government finally secured the British-Iranian aid workers' return home to the UK by paying the Iranians £400 million that Tehran claims it was owed dating all the way back to the Shah's time in power. Terry Waite knows what it's like to spend years living in limbo. The former envoy to the Archbishop of Canterbury spent 4 years in captivity in Lebanon in the 1980s. He was there trying to secure the release of 4 other hostages, and he's been advising the Ratcliffe family.
I said, Nazrin, when you come out, take it as though you're coming up from the seabed. If you come up too quickly, you get nitrogen in the blood and you get the bends and you become seriously ill. If you come out gently, 1 step at a time, then you'll be fine. Make your statement to the press, get that off your chest, then go and meet with the family, and then give yourself time away from all the enormous pressures that will be on her at this time.
His advice is rooted in his own experience of reconnecting with a family from whom he had been parted for so long. The Ratcliffe family, like the Waites, have worked tirelessly to secure their loved one's release, and like Nazanin, will also be absolutely exhausted. The main news again. Secretary of State Antony Blinken says he's personally backing President Biden's decision to brand Vladimir Putin a war criminal. In Mariupol, efforts continue to evacuate survivors from the basement of a theatre shelled by the Russians as more than 1,000 civilians sought safety inside. And there's fury in Britain, where P&O Ferries fired 800 shipboard workers and announced plans to replace them with contract labourers. And that is the latest feature story news. Simon Marks reporting.
Geneticists gathered at a conference this week to debate the ethics of cloning human beings and compelling them to fight to the death in a rock-filled pit for our amusement. Experts at the conference reportedly discussed questions key to the scientific field, such as the morality of arming hundreds of clones with maces and pitting them against each other on a small platform surrounded by molten lava.
Cloning humans and goading them into viciously battling certainly raises ethical questions. It's important that we consider this topic with an open mind. Whether or not we should be stranding clones on a desert island, assigning them weapons by a lottery system, and making them murder one another tournament style remains a matter up for debate.
And in this week's local news, a man is wearing a low-cut swimsuit as though a public pool is some kind of sun-kissed Sardinian cove. In other news, China's veteran reporters blast the decline of traditional state-run journalism. A new study finds human hearing is most acute when listening to arguing parents from the top of the stairs, and fireflies almost manage to salvage a local man's shitty day.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live. You can bring up what you want. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. In the studio with you tonight, you've got Ian,
Matt,
and Bonnie.
And, of course, you can bring up whatever is on your mind. You can join us online anytime over at freetalklive.com. We do have our social media site that we are the operators of. There's no big tech media corporation that is in charge over there, so that means you have more freedom to speak, more freedom to express yourself over at social.freetalklive.com. Once again, it's social.freetalklive.com. We're talking about the lack of freedom in many places for expression, like Canada, where they're now prohibiting RT, the Russia Today, the Russian-funded media that's basically, it's propaganda, but to their credit, it's better journalism than you're going to get in the Western media from what I've seen. I've been a fan of RT for quite a long time, because their reporting actually does question the governments of the United States and elsewhere. Obviously, they're not going to be too critical of the Russian government, but that said, there's a story right here from RT talking about how Russia is now criminalizing quote-unquote disinformation about its own military. So they do report on what's really happening in Russia. They're not just like trying to make it sound like Russia's some sort of free speech place. It's not. And
I'm surprised they ran that story.
Yeah, and there have been other ones like this in their reports. So, but just to finish up here from the story about the RT ban in Canada, it's a decision by the Canadian Radio, Television, Communications Commission, or Telecommunications Commission. It comes a day after Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky addressed Canadian lawmakers asking them to support the government in Kyiv. They're claiming that over 1.3 million Canadians claim at least some Ukrainian descent, compared to just over 600,000 with Russian heritage. So screw the Russian people of Canada. They don't get to watch anything from their home country. Quote, freedom of speech and range of perspectives are a necessary part of our democracy. However, it is a privilege and not a right to be broadcast in Canada, said the CRTC boss Ian Scott.
That's so gross.
In a statement on Wednesday, 3 major Canadian TV providers, Rogers, Bell, and Shaw, all announced they would be dropping RT back on February 27th, so long before the government mandated it. Most of the major providers already dropped RT. Shaw promised its clients a credit on the next bill. After Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said he would ask the CRTC to look into a ban, Access Communications did so as well. While RT International continues to broadcast, RT France stopped operations on March 3rd after the EU banned RT and Sputnik as, quote, Russian propaganda, unquote, as Moscow's decision to send, or regarding Moscow's decision to send troops into Ukraine.
This should come as no surprise, though, really, if you think about it. Didn't Canada, like maybe 10 years ago, didn't they like ban hate speech?
Oh, yeah.
They made it a criminal thing. You're not allowed to say hate things.
Well,
that's correct.
Or whatever.
I think that's correct. And also they made it a crime to accidentally use the wrong pronoun talking about somebody in at least one of their provinces. I don't know if it's all of them.
Yeah, Canada's nuts. And if you weren't sure about that, just look at how they handled the COVID situation. They were actually one of the most oppressive in all of, at least, well, they were the most oppressive in all of North America. I mean, there's no doubt about that. Probably even worse than, like basically take what San Francisco was doing and make it nationwide. And you've got Canada.
Nutty. That's nutty.
So anyway, the number here, if you want to join us, 603-283-6160. So if you want to see RT, you can still go to their website unless you're in a country like, in Europe, where that's actually being prohibited by the internet service providers, from what I understand. So you'd have to go on a virtual private network in order to access RT's website. But Odyssey, the streaming and the video platform that we are on, over at watch.freetalklive.com. That takes you right to our live stream, or video.freetalklive.com will take you to our Odyssey channel. If you go up and you type in RT into the search up there, then you will be able to find RT's channel. You'll be able to find their news packages that they've put together, and even their live stream, which is getting harder and harder to do. As I was saying before, they used to be on free-to-air satellite, which is where we have a channel. LRN.FM has an audio channel up there. RT was a mainstay for as long as I've known about free-to-air satellite. It's gone now.
Wow.
It's gone. I don't know if that was their decision to pull their channel or if the satellite company pulled it off on their own volition. I've never seen any reports about that, but the channel is gone. So
how would Odyssey work with that? Could other countries shut down Odyssey in their areas?
They could. Yeah.
How do you think that would work?
They haven't done that yet, but they could. They would basically do what the European Union did and, just tell their internet service providers that you cannot allow your customers to go to this URL. Don't give them any ideas. I mean, I don't think they've done that yet, per se. But for right now, Odyssey is one of the few places on the planet where you can actually get the Russia Today content.
But Odyssey funnels straight through to library blockchain, right? So
yes and no. So Odyssey was built on library, which for listeners that don't know is a media sharing protocol. So protocol means it's uncensorable. Anyone can use it. Library is amazing. People should check it out, lbry.com, to learn more about that technology, and you can get involved in it. Odyssey is kind of like a pretty cover for library. It's sort of a front end, if you will, for library, but there's more to Odyssey than just library in the behind the scenes and the guts. Odyssey also uses what's called a content delivery network, which is a centralized server or a series of centralized servers. And the reason they do that is because they want to compete with YouTube. And the fact is, if you have a video on library that only has one or two people seeding the video, it may not be very fast. It'll be there, but it might not come to your computer quickly. So they want to make sure that anything that you click on is going to come fast, and so they do have their inventory, their videos cached on a server.
I wondered about that before because I heard that library works by people seeding each video. I wondered, are there some videos that just won't work if nobody's seeding them? But I guess that's what Odyssey fixes.
Yeah, so technically Odyssey itself acts as a seed for library's content, with the exception of porn, which they don't want on Odyssey. But again, if you want to upload a porn video to library, no one can stop you. It is essentially a completely uncensorable protocol. But because Odyssey is a platform that's built on top of library, they can say yay or nay to certain things. Right. And Odyssey says yes to free speech generally. There are only a few categories that they don't want on their platform. So kudos to Odyssey for being with it on this. They're making the right choice. So in other news out of Russia, the mainstream media, the Western mainstream media, is reporting on Putin's speech. He gave another speech recently, and like a lot of politicians, he tends to be pretty verbose. I've read one of his speeches, or looked over most of one of his speeches from a few weeks ago, and some of it was actually pretty interesting. I considered sharing it on the air, but I ended up choosing not to, just because the whole thing was just too long. But I've got two perspectives here. We got the Western media perspective on the speech, and then RT's perspective on the speech. So here's what Yahoo News is reporting, and this is actually from Alexander Nazarian, the White House correspondent there. The speech that Russian President Vladimir Putin made on Wednesday bore the hallmarks of unapologetic authoritarianism, said Russian experts and observers. Quote, "We are well post-1934, said Nina Khrushcheva, a professor of international relations at the New School in New York City, referencing the year when Soviet dictator Joseph Stalin began his murderous purge."
Oh, I thought she was referencing the book, and I was like, yep, we are well past that here in America.
Putin is an unabashed admirer of Stalin and has worked successfully in Russia to rehabilitate his image. I think they mean Stalin's image, which suffered for years after a posthumous denunciation in 1956 by Khrushchev's great-grandfather Nikita Khrushchev, the then Soviet leader. In his unsettling remarks, Putin lashed out at national traitors he blamed for undermining the war he launched against Ukraine. We'll talk more about this, and this may tie in with your theory that Putin is a communist. So we'll hear more about that on the way. The number is 603-283-6160. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
Brute force, intransigent defiance, adamantine will. These are the hallmarks of the AI tank. These gigantic machines have the firepower of an army, but they also have their own sense of honor and duty. When the world breakers arrive, battle will be joined, planets will shake, and war and peace will never be the same again. World Breakers. Stories from David Weber, Larry Correia, and more. Available August 3rd from BaneBooks.com.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this, right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it, and once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world, so I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here, and I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit shiresociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, connect with others via the forum at shiresociety.com. That's shiresociety.com. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
How many lawyers does it take to change a light bulb? None. They'd rather keep their clients in the dark. There are too many lawyer jokes to count. However, there are some lawyers with more noble intentions. At the Institute for Justice, we bring the light to our clients. We are a non-profit public interest law firm with clear values and principles. At IJ, we fight for those whose most basic rights are denied by the government. Visit our website today at ij.org.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
Free Talk Live. Phones open. If you want to join the show, you can hear the number 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. We're going to compare some propaganda coming up here. And by the way, I did try to find the actual speech from Putin. And the Russian government website, the Kremlin site, it's being blocked, or it's not working, or maybe it's being DDoSed, as they call it, denial of service attacked. I've heard that those things are happening against Russian websites, so it's very difficult to get on. I did pull up a cached version on Google Cache, but I could not find an English translation of the speech that we're going to be talking about. So what we're going to do is going to share two perspectives, the Western media perspective and then the RT perspective on this speech, and you decide for yourself as far as what the content was and what it means to you. But this is from Yahoo News and Alexander Nazarian, their senior White House correspondent, saying that some purported experts in the United States are saying that Putin's speech sounded a lot like Stalin. In his unsettling remarks, Putin lashed out at quote-unquote national traitors he blamed for undermining the war that he launched against Ukraine. Olga Lautman, a senior fellow at the Center for European Policy Analysis, wrote on Twitter, quote, Putin really wants to take Russia back to Stalin days. He has always emulated Stalin, and this speech is definitely angrier and stronger than previous speeches, unquote. President Biden said Wednesday that Putin is a war criminal and that rhetoric the Russian leader used was strikingly similar to the language that authoritarians have developed to demonize, persecute, and kill ethnic minorities and political opposition groups. And of course, I love that they're positioning the Russian guy as the authoritarian and Joe Biden as this, leader of the free world.
The non-war criminal.
Exactly, even though he's been dropping bombs on, various places in the Middle East, just like every president.
Well, it was an accident when he killed those children in Afghanistan.
Even as Western efforts at diplomacy continue, the Kremlin remains in the grip of profound geopolitical grievance, which could make a peace settlement difficult. Putin said true Russians would, quote, always be able to distinguish true patriots from scum and traitors, unquote, presumably a reference to Russians who have protested his invasion of Ukraine in Moscow and St. Petersburg. Thousands with the means to do so have left Russia, which is facing widespread cultural and economic isolation. Russia, according to Putin, said, quote, will simply spit them out like an insect in their mouth, spit them onto the pavement, unquote, he said of the Russian fifth columnists with Western sympathies.
That's gross.
American investor Bill Browder, who's become a nemesis of Putin after exposing corruption in the Kremlin, said on Twitter, quote, this is very, very scary. The language is unbelievable, unquote. Khrushcheva told Yahoo News, quote, this whole speech was pure Dr. Strangelove, bodily fluids, purification, and whatnot, she said.
You haven't seen that movie, have you?
I've not, no.
That's like one of my favorite movies. You guys would both love that movie.
Referencing Stanley Kubrick's classic 1964 satire about nuclear war, she said, very Hollywood, it's happening to us, not on screen, she wrote in an email. Putin clearly sees Russia as the victim, denouncing the economic blitzkrieg of Western sanctions in his remarks, a reference to Adolf Hitler's favored mode of sudden, overwhelming attack.
Oh my God. People use the word blitzkrieg for all the time. And you could be like, oh, I got so many customers today. It was like a blitzkrieg. They just had to throw the word Adolf Hitler in there, which, I mean, obviously he is being an authoritarian with the things he's saying, like, we're going to spit out people who aren't being true Russians because they're protesting what I'm doing, but it's just so obvious when they're trying to paint someone some certain way.
Yeah, and they've been doing that for weeks now, trying to paint Putin as the new Hitler, when, of course, Putin is actually saying that he's the one going after the Nazis.
Yes.
And the reality, of course, is that there are Nazis in Ukraine, and they are in the Ukrainian Defense Force. They're called the Azov Battalion, and I just saw a photo today, and again, you never know what's true or not, but allegedly showing the Azov Battalion being given, weapons from NATO or from the United States. So
it's really weird, though, because there's so many Jewish people in Ukraine.
Yeah, I don't know what the percentage of Jewish people is there, whether it's high or not. The fact is there are a large number of Nazis that exist there, and they've gotten themselves into positions of influence. So those people who are supporting giving billions of dollars to the Ukrainian government, I mean, ultimately some of that's going to find its way into the hands of the Nazis.
You would think.
As are some of these weapons.
Maybe they mean it in a different way than I'm interpreting it. Like maybe they just mean it as, oh, we're Ukrainian nationalists and not like anti-Jews specifically, like Adolf Hitler. I don't know.
I mean, they do fly Nazi flags, so I mean,
and in reality, Vladimir Putin probably doesn't care if they're Nazis or not. It's just something that he gets to put a pin in. You know? Oh, look at the bad Nazis. That's who I'm going after. You know, it's an excuse.
So he said. Let's see. Quote, I want to be as direct as possible. Hostile geopolitical designs lie behind the hypocritical talk and recent actions of the so-called collective West, said Putin, according to an English language. Oh, here's a transcript provided by the Kremlin. I will check that in a bit. Quote, they have no use, simply no use for a strong and sovereign Russia, and they will not forgive us for our independent policy or for standing up for our national interests, unquote. Putin has maintained he intends to, needed to invade Ukraine to, quote, denazify and demilitarize, unquote, the country, but also fears that the Western sphere of influence is increasingly close to Russia's borders. The event Wednesday was billed by the Kremlin as a discussion between Putin and regional leaders about socioeconomic support. It was a brief section of Putin's comments from his introduction, however, that caught the attention of social media users, with millions having viewed a short clip in which he caustically pointed his finger at Russians who have grown rich during his tenure but are now abandoning the country as it becomes an international pariah. Quote, I do not in the least condemn those who have villas in Miami or in the French Riviera who cannot make do without foie gras, oysters, or gender freedom, as they call it. That is not the problem, not at all, Putin said, referencing the standard of living that Russians have enjoyed since he stabilized the economy after a chaotic period of unfettered capitalism in the 1990s.
It's just so funny. Gender freedom, as they call it. It's called being gay, Putin.
He also played on long-standing Russian feelings of inferiority relative to the West, reminding supposedly disloyal critics of his Ukrainian campaign that they would never be allowed into, quote, the superior caste, the superior race, unquote, of Western society. The West, he suggested, sees Russians not as equals, but as expendable raw material to be exploited. The speech left Lotman of the Center for European Policy Analysis stunned. Quote, everyone soon will be fifth columnists as Putin gets more enraged, she told Yahoo News. There will be a purge from his agencies, military, and everyday citizens. It was really a dark speech.
You know, if you look at the people who are talking here, this lady sounds to me like a Trotskyist, like a typical New York City leftist,
yeah.
But not a Stalinist, a Trotskyist. The neocons are all Trotskyists, right?
Now, what is a Trotskyist?
A Trotskyist, so Trotsky was another Russian revolutionary at the same time as Stalin and their ilk. They came to butt heads at one point. Stalin sought to have Trotsky killed.
And did he?
And I think he eventually did end up finding him and getting him killed. But Trotskyism became very popular in New York City in the 30s and 40s as well. And Trotsky was here talking in those days, and the neocon movement was founded.
So he was a commie as well?
Yes. So the neocons, I think we're having a fight between neocons and Stalinist communists.
We'll continue. It's Free Talk Live.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country.
Yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market. Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing. To be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. It's physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project Early Movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks.
Yesterday, President Biden said that, in his opinion, war crimes have been committed in Ukraine. Personally, I agree.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken backing President Biden's decision to brand Vladimir Putin a war criminal, but he went on to say formal investigations are only just beginning into whether Russian forces have committed war crimes in Ukraine. Were the case to be proved, he said, consequences would have to follow.
I don't want to speculate about the future, but there's going to have to be, one way or another, accountability for this war of aggression.
Mr. Blinken said he could see no sign Vladimir Putin is preparing to back down, even though US officials indicated today Russian forces in Ukraine are lacking motivation to fight. President Biden, at a St. Patrick's Day lunch in Washington, used new terminology to describe the Russian leader.
Now you have Ireland and Great Britain, the Republic, standing together against a murderous dictator. A pure thug who is waging an immoral war against the people of Ukraine.
In Ukraine itself, officials are recovering survivors from the rubble of a theatre in the Black Sea port of Mariupol. It was attacked by Russian forces, with more than 1,000 people seeking refuge inside. In the city of Chernihiv, Ukrainian officials say at least 53 civilians were killed by Russian forces, including one US citizen. The UN says 3.2 million people have now fled Ukraine. Many of those refugees are heading to Poland, where the British government says it will now deploy its Sky Sabre missile defence system, a move sure to enrage Moscow. FSN's Will Denzelo is on the Polish border with Ukraine.
When it comes to Russia's response, well, they've repeatedly asserted that they want to see a de-escalation when it comes to a military presence on the Eastern Front. They want to see weaponry, they want to see military personnel pulled back from places like Poland.
And that seems increasingly unlikely given the scale of Russia's assault. In other news, there is fury in Britain after P&O, a major operator of ferries, summarily fired 800 workers, told them to get off their vessels immediately, and announced plans to replace them with contract labourers. The announcement came without warning. British government ministers say they have expressed their fury to the company, but opposition Transport Secretary Louise Haigh says P&O should now face legal action.
P&O and their parent company, DP World, have several contracts and licenses with the government. They take taxpayers' money, so the government should be looking at suspending that right now.
And two other headlines. US basketball star Brittany Griner is to remain in jail in Russia on suspected drugs offences. She'll be held for at least 2 more months. And Kanye West has been suspended from Instagram, accused of bullying. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
This is Free Talk Live, and you can bring up whatever you want to discuss here. The number is 603-283-6160. And in the studio tonight, you've got Ian,
Matt,
and Bonnie.
There's lots in the news that we can talk about. We're in the middle of comparing some propaganda here. We have the Western propaganda from Yahoo News, reporting on Vladimir Putin's recent speech that was given yesterday, apparently, as he met with regional heads to discuss measures of socioeconomic support. And the people that they spoke with, which you believe, Matt, may be Trotskyite or Trotskyist supporters, maybe from leftist universities. They definitely do cite somebody here from, I forget which university in New York City.
NYU.
New School
New School, yeah.
in New York City. And not that we're saying that Stalin was a great guy, but neither was this Trotsky character.
He's both garbage,
right?
Absolute trash.
I didn't know a whole lot about Trotsky. You knew a thing or two. I went and pulled up some information. Apparently, he was a Marxist adherent, an orthodox Marxist, as he described himself.
So he, in the 30s, or maybe it was even earlier than that, but he went on a speaking tour. Basically, he was on the run from Russia, but while he was at it, he decided to do some speaking engagements, and he when he was in the United States, one of the things he tried to do, this is before the Cold War, really, so one of the things he tried to do was get into students' heads. So he went to NYU, which was a very open-thinking college in general. They would meet in this lunchroom, this part of the lunchroom called Alcove 1, and there were a group of Stalinist commies who would meet in Alcove 2, and they would have lunch, and they would talk about commie things. And they were always at odds with each other because the Trotskyists didn't agree with the methods and the beliefs of the Alcove 2 people, obviously. And
so what you're saying is the communists can't even agree on how to do communism.
They never do. They're always constantly infighting in communism. They don't get along.
That's why they'll exterminate the other communists.
Yes, they're always. And if you even look at just like the stuff you can see today in the news, they're always eating their own.
Mm-hmm.
They're always eating their own. It's nonstop, constant. There's no support between them. And at the end of the day, what they really need to realize is communism is a failure because it's anti-human nature.
Absolutely.
And you are all individuals, whether you like it or not. You will be at odds with other people because you are an individual.
And free market trading and action is just like such a humanizing thing to do with other people. Like, you might not know anything about this country, but then you find out they make rubber and you need rubber. You got to trade with them, and then you end up with people from your country marrying people from their country. It humanizes them, and it's a like, you, without that you can't be friends. You can't be friends with people
You're saying free trade brings people together?
Yeah, you can't be friends with people who you're being stolen from in order to support them, you know?
Yeah, where goods and services can't cross borders, soldiers will.
So let's go to this other interpretation. So we read the Western interpretation of the Putin speech, saying that it was Stalin-esque. He's calling out, going to exterminate his own people now, right? That's what they're saying. Here's RT's report about it. Headline: Putin on Ukraine and the West. Key takeaways from his latest speech. The collective West, clinging on its crumbling dominance, has been the ultimate driver of the crisis, said Russian president. He gave an extensive speech, which is why we're not going to read the whole thing, on the Ukrainian crisis Wednesday as he met with regional heads to discuss socioeconomic support to counter the wave of anti-Russian sanctions, much of which, as we've been reporting, is voluntary. A lot of the quote-unquote sanctions that are going on are just mega corporations deciding to cut off business with the Russian people. Not hurting the Russian oligarchs, not hurting Putin and his cronies,
right, regular people,
but hurting regular people and making it so they can't eat McDonald's or rent an Airbnb or go on Netflix or grab a video game from Sony or Nintendo. That's what we're talking about here. But Putin provided his take on the ongoing conflict with Ukraine, its causes, and the goals Russia pursues. Launching the, quote, special military operation, unquote, was the only option Russia had left to end the years-long bloodshed in eastern Ukraine, said Putin. At the same time, limiting its scope to the breakaway Donbas republics would only push the front line westwards rather than diffuse the situation, he noted. While waging the war against the breakaway regions of Donbas, Kyiv has been preparing for a broad offensive to recapture them, said Putin.
I don't know. I don't know if I buy that he couldn't have just stopped in the Donbas regions, because if the Donbas regions were being bombed by Kiev because they wanted to become independent, I don't see why he couldn't have just went in there and helped them like he was claiming he was doing and then stopped there.
Well, I think his claim is that he wanted to stop the bombings and the attacks from continuing against those regions.
He couldn't have done it from there? You had to go into
You have to find where they're launching the bombs from and, stop them. So purportedly, if you believe the Russian side of things, they're only targeting military targets. And I saw a propaganda video today which purported to show Russian troops addressing Ukrainian people in the streets, telling them, we're not here to harm you. Here's you can get out of here this way. If you go that direction, our troops are there. You'll be safe. And just saying, look, we're not here to attack the people. But then again, Western media is
just
claiming
terrorizing them and
the
bringing them out
opposite.
of their homes.
Yeah. While waging the war against the breakaway regions, again, they claim that Kyiv was preparing for an offensive to recapture Donbas, adding that, quote, almost 14,000 civilians, including children, have been killed, unquote, in the conflict. Ukrainian authorities also sought to attack Crimea, which split from the country in 2014 and joined Russia via referendum. Quote, encouraged by the United States and other Western countries, Ukraine was purposefully preparing for a scenario of force, a massacre, and an ethnic cleansing in Donbass. A massive onslaught on Donbass and later Crimea was just a matter of time. However, our armed forces have shattered these plans, Putin said. Ukrainian authorities have openly stated their goal to obtain weapons of mass destruction, namely nuclear bombs, and means of their delivery, said Putin. Given the extremely hostile attitude of Kyiv, such systems would have been used to target Russia once they were ready. Putin also touched upon the Ukrainian biolab network allegations raised by the Russian military amid the offensive. Did you guys hear about these?
Mm-mm. Yeah, I heard that supposedly there's biolabs in Ukraine that contain crazy types of, like, way worse than COVID-19.
Oh, wait, are you talking about the ones that don't exist? Oh, wait, they do exist. Oh, please help us protect the biolabs that don't exist.
They
That's what
started
the
off
US
saying they didn't even exist.
Yeah.
The U.S. people were saying that.
Yeah.
The facilities scattered across the country have allegedly been engaged in biological weapons development with direct support of Washington. The allegations, backed by documents published by the Russian military, have been met with varying degrees of denial from top U.S. officials. Putin said, quote, there was a network of dozens of laboratories in Ukraine where military biological programs were conducted under the guidance and with the financial support of the Pentagon, including experiments with coronavirus strains, anthrax, cholera, African swine fever, and other deadly diseases.
I saw botulism, which is one of the scariest things.
Yeah, it is.
You know, in times like these, I always trust top U.S. officials.
You shouldn't trust anybody, including Putin, but it's interesting to hear the other side of the story.
Mm-hmm.
Putin added that now, quote, frantic attempts, unquote, are underway to conceal the, quote, traces of these secret programs, unquote. Over the past few years, under the close guidance of their Western handlers, the Kyiv authorities have morphed Ukraine into the anti-Russia, Putin suggested. Now remember, the allegations are that in 2014, it was the CIA who went into the Ukraine and put in their own people, put in, a U.S.-friendly dictator.
Which is so hard to believe. Why would the CIA do something like that? They would never do anything. That's a sovereign nation. Our CIA would never get involved with their elections.
Except they do
we're
that
in
all
there
the time.
to
Except
help
that's their
democracy.
entire job.
Yeah. The only goal of the incumbent Kyiv, quote, regime, unquote, is to drag the conflict on for as long as possible, with little regard to the fate of the civilians or destruction that ensues. Putin said, quote, we are seeing again and again that the Kyiv regime, for which its Western masters have set the task of creating an aggressive anti-Russia, is indifferent to the fate of the people of Ukraine themselves. He said further, it's also obvious the Western handlers are simply pushing the Kyiv authorities to continue the bloodshed. They are supplied with more and more weaponry batches. They are provided with intelligence. They also receive other assistance, including military advisors and mercenaries. We'll continue here. Your thoughts are welcome. In fact, Matt, you've got some interesting claims about those mercenaries coming up.
Mm-hmm. You know how annoying it is when someone keeps stopping mid-sentence as though he or she were asking you a series of questions? Avoid doing that. It sounds unnervingly tentative, and it imposes upon the listener to help you complete the thought. And if you're a job seeker, this alone could be a deal killer. An effective communicator sounds more confident. Complete the thought. Avoid making the listener impatient. With money and attention so scarce now, effective communication skills have never been more important. Cutting through the clutter rather than blending into the blah, blah, blah will help you connect better no matter what the conversation. For more tips, hit survivalspeech.com. I'm Holland Cook. Survivalspeech.com.
I'm crazy about My Magic Mud. This is the most important oral care product created this millennium, and I'm not kidding. We all have different opinions on politics and issues, but we all have mouths. And I want yours to be as clean as possible, with teeth as bright as they were meant to be. I will never be without My Magic Mud. It's a little surprising, but man, does it work. If you only listen to one thing I say ever, go to mymagicmud.com and get 20% off with code FTL. mymagicmud.com, code FTL.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
Free Talk Live.
Who is playing dress up as a guess?
Superhero.
Ninja.
Yeah.
A border ninja.
See, that would be the problem. Somebody else would dress up like a pirate, and then there would be a war.
Yeah. Just the pirates duking it out.
Wait, well, what do the pirates have against ninjas? Ninjas and pirates are like matter and antimatter. They can't be together.
Okay.
I have a feeling the ninjas would just whoop it up on the pirates.
Are you kidding? Pirates. Pirates, man.
Oh, the pirates do have cannons. They have the long-range attack ability, but once you get in close...
It's hard to be tougher than a pirate, though.
The pirates are certainly tough, but the agility I don't think is there.
Lose a hand, lose a leg, you can still get 200 people to be afraid of you as you stomp around with half of your, an eye patch, one hand, one leg. You stomp around half a person, and you're still commanding 200 people.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live, phones open. You can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. 603-283-6160. Here tonight, you've got Ian,
Matt,
and Bonnie.
We're sharing some more excerpts from the Vladimir Putin speech yesterday. We gave you the Western perspective, suggesting he sounds like Stalin, suggesting he's going to start exterminating his own people next, calling him Hitler, whereas RT is taking out excerpts here that say that the Ukraine situation is basically being put forward by the West, that the Ukrainian government is essentially a puppet of the Western democracies by the United States, NATO, etc., and they're just doing their bidding because, well, the CIA put them into place in 2014 in the first place. Now, he doesn't specifically mention the CIA, but he does say that the regime was put into place. And that's what we're sharing with you here. Also, he references mercenaries, and I do want to talk about that, but we'll just finish this story here before we get into what you've seen, Matt. And I think I saw the same video of a guy who apparently just went over there to join the fight.
Yep.
Sound like an American based on the accent, and we'll kind of recap what he had to say about his experience so far. But again, the number here is 603-283-6160. So... both Ukrainian, this is from RT.com, Ukrainian authorities and the collective West have exhibited shocking cynicism, according to Putin, offering the ballistic missile strike on the center of Donetsk that occurred on Monday as an example of such behavior. The strike killed at least 20 civilians.
Whose missile was it?
Well, again, allegedly, it was the Ukrainians attacking Donetsk with a missile strike in a population center. Now, once again, as I've said, when the Ukrainians are attacked in the non-eastern regions of Ukraine, I always say, well, is it the Ukrainians attacking their own people? How do we know who actually fired that missile?
Right.
And the same thing's true in Donetsk. Was it the Ukrainians who fired the missile, or did the Russians? Who knows?
Could be a total third party trying to stir up some snot.
Could be. Quote, they are striking randomly at squares with the fervor of fanatics and the exasperation of the doomed. They are acting like the Nazis did when they tried to drag as many innocent victims as they could to their graves, said Putin, adding that Kyiv had tried to blame the strike on Russia through, quote, blatant lies, unquote. The attitude of the so-called civilized world to the missile strike turned to be, quote, shocking in its extreme cynicism, unquote, as well. The president went on saying further, quote, the European and American press did not even notice this tragedy in Donetsk as if nothing happened, just like they have been hypocritically looking the other way over the past 8 years as mothers buried their children in Donbass, as elderly people were killed. This is simply moral degradation, complete dehumanization. Now, if that narrative is true, if it's true that the Donbass regions declared independence from Ukraine and subsequently have been bombed by the Ukrainian central government gang for the last several years, is that a justification to have foreign military come in and support them with tanks and troops?
I guess it would depend on what kind of deal the Donbass region is making with a foreign country. If they're making deals with them, then I guess there would be some kind of agreement for protection.
Ultimately, the West's desire to maintain its global dominance is the root of the ongoing Ukrainian turmoil as well as crises in other parts of the globe, says Putin. Quote, today the entire planet has to pay the price for the ambitions of the West for its attempts by any means to maintain its crumbling dominance, he said. Concerned only with their vested interests and super profits, the Western elites led the world into this current situation through, quote, years of mistakes and short-sighted decisions, unquote. For instance, the impact of the anti-Russian sanctions imposed over the Ukrainian conflict is already being felt by common people in the West, while the elites have been bizarrely trying to blame it on Moscow, Putin noted.
Wow. I mean, the Americans didn't say anything about that in their coverage of this.
Nope.
And he's not wrong.
And his final quote here that they share at the RT story, quote, I want ordinary Western people to hear me as well. You are being persistently told that your current difficulties are the result of Russia's hostile actions and that you have to pay from your own pockets for the efforts to counter the alleged Russian threat. All of that is a lie.
He's not wrong.
He's not wrong. And a lot of times...
But how are the average Western people going to hear this when...
They're not.
Then, it's not being reported and they're being blocked.
Great point.
RT is.
This is coming straight from RT, which, as we discussed in the first hour, is completely blocked in most of the Western world, with the exception of the United States. But even here, again, DirecTV has taken them off the air. They're no longer available on free-to-air satellite. And I presume if they were on any cable systems like Comcast or whatever, they're probably not anymore.
Wow.
I've not seen news about which cable systems were carrying them and or not are not now in the United States. But the bandwagon effect is very real when it comes to cutting off all things Russia and all people from Russia. And I think that's really the saddest part about what's been happening here is Putin is a scumbag just like every other president and every other dictator and every other, Congress, and they're all bad. There's no doubt about it. But the Russian people are innocent. And now they can't even, if you had a Russian YouTube channel, sorry.
Yep.
If you had that monetized and you were making a little bit of money as a Russian person,
done.
You cannot do that anymore. Now you got to go and get some crappy job at a restaurant if there's any still open.
Nationalized McDonald's.
Well, no, they didn't. They chose not to do that. McDonald's is just simply closing their stores.
You know what they were considering doing? They were considering getting rid of their what are the laws called, like copyright laws, and just running McDonald's anyway without not copyright laws, it's something else.
Trademarks.
Trademark laws. I don't know if they are going to do that, but that would be the best way.
I mean, everything's in place to do it. The infrastructure's there. The people who know how to do it are there. But during war, supply chains take a beating. So even if they wanted to, could they?
You gotta
War
get those
is
burgers
bad
somewhere.
Yeah. War is bad for people. It's bad for economies, which in turn is bad for people, and everything. And the pollution levels of war are insane. I mean, it's horrible. Nobody should ever go to war.
There was a story actually about the Burger Kings in Russia. Apparently, there's 800 stores in Russia, and they're a franchise. But Burger King also owns 15%, and Burger King is saying, well, we'd shut them down if we could, but we don't have that in our contract, basically. So Burger King is unable to do what a lot of these other corporations were able to do, which to me, I was amazed when I heard that McDonald's was closing so many stores. My first thought was, aren't a lot of these franchise? How can you just go ahead and tell a franchisee who has paid hundreds of thousands of dollars every year or whatever a franchise fee costs? I know it's not cheap to start a franchise. I don't know if the ongoing fees are as high as the initial fee or whatever. I don't know how all that works, but it's not cheap. To just be able to have the corporation just walk away from you and say, oh yeah, we're just going to close everything you just put all this money into, and unless every single McDonald's is corporate.
It would make me never want to do business with McDonald's on that kind of level. Yeah. Again,
as a business owner, you mean? As a franchisee?
Yeah.
So apparently, the Burger King situation is that a corporation cannot stop it, but apparently they're also going to stop supporting the franchisee. So does that mean that the franchisee now has to source their own meat? Because normally you go through the corporation to get your supplies. So what?
Maybe it'll be real meat.
Well, I don't know if Burger King's not real meat. I've never heard that. I've never heard that allegation about them.
One time they were in trouble for selling horse meat. Not that that's not real meat, but it's just weird.
Did it taste good?
I don't know.
Just FYI, horse meat is delicious. It is absolutely delicious. I hate saying that, but it's a fact.
I've never had it, at least knowledgeably. I have had ostrich.
Steak is better than a cow steak.
Wow.
I've had an ostrich burger, and it was really good.
Ostrich is delicious, too.
Yeah.
Ostrich is extremely lean. Less fat than chicken, skinless chicken breast.
Yeah, it was really good. So we're going to get into this mercenary story here as well, because it's kind of an interesting aspect of this. Presumably, people who have wanted to, who've felt the call that they want to go help the Ukrainian people, have been showing up, bringing their gun or bringing, whatever equipment that they have, and been put to use.
Yep.
And maybe abuse.
There's people showing up in Ukraine and Russia. I don't know. I haven't heard anything from the Russian side, but I know that as recently as a couple weeks ago and right up until today, I've heard of people not too far removed from my actual circles, some saying they're going to go, I'm going to Ukraine, and other ones saying, I'm going to Russia. It's like, are you guys out of your minds? But the thing is, these are people who've been in wars, and war tourism is a thing. And once you're programmed for war, sometimes it's hard to walk away from war. And when you hear about one springing up, you just gotta go. It's like an Allman Brothers concert. Once you've been to one, you gotta keep going to other ones.
Yeah, my little brother that's in the Air Force was getting all, I have to go if they tell me I have to go, Bonnie, and all this stuff. My dad, I was complaining about it to my dad, and he was like, you just don't understand the culture. When you're in the military, everybody hypes each other up when there's going to be a war. And
suckers.
Yeah.
We'll talk about these mercenaries that went over there, or volunteers, or whatever you want to call them, coming up here in hour 3. It's Free Talk Live. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks.
Yesterday, President Biden said that, in his opinion, war crimes have been committed in Ukraine. Personally, I agree.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken backing President Biden's decision to brand Vladimir Putin a war criminal, but he went on to say formal investigations are only just beginning into whether Russian forces have committed war crimes in Ukraine. Were the case to be proved, he said, consequences would have to follow.
I don't want to speculate about the future, but there's going to have to be, one way or another, accountability for this war of aggression.
Mr. Blinken said he could see no sign Vladimir Putin is preparing to back down, even though U.S. officials indicated today Russian forces in Ukraine are lacking motivation to fight. President Biden, at a St. Patrick's Day lunch in Washington, used new terminology to describe the Russian leader.
Now you have Ireland and Great Britain, the Republic, standing together against a murderous dictator. A pure thug who is waging an immoral war against the people of Ukraine.
In Ukraine itself, officials are recovering survivors from the rubble of a theatre in the Black Sea port of Mariupol. It was attacked by Russian forces, with more than 1,000 people seeking refuge inside. In the city of Chernihiv, Ukrainian officials say at least 53 civilians were killed by Russian forces, including one U.S. citizen. The UN says 3.2 million people have now fled Ukraine. Many of those refugees are heading to Poland, where the British government says it will now deploy its Sky Sabre missile defense system, a move sure to enrage Moscow. FSN's Will Denzelo is on the Polish border with Ukraine.
When it comes to Russia's response, well, they've repeatedly asserted that they want to see a de-escalation when it comes to a military presence on the Eastern Front. They want to see weaponry, they want to see military personnel pulled back from places like Poland.
And that seems increasingly unlikely given the scale of Russia's assault. In other news, there is fury in Britain after P&O, a major operator of ferries, summarily fired 800 workers, told them to get off their vessels immediately, and announced plans to replace them with contract labourers. The announcement came without warning. British government ministers say they have expressed their fury to the company, but Opposition Transport Secretary Louise Haigh says P&O should now face legal action.
P&O and their parent company, DP World, have several contracts and licenses with the government. They take taxpayers' money, so the government should be looking at suspending that right now.
And two other headlines. US basketball star Brittany Griner is to remain in jail in Russia on suspected drugs offences. She'll be held for at least 2 more months. And Kanye West has been suspended from Instagram, accused of bullying. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. Today, some advice for Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe, who has been freed from a Kafkaesque 6-year odyssey in Iran. Jailed on trumped-up espionage charges, the British government finally secured the British-Iranian aid workers' return home to the UK by paying the Iranians £400 million that Tehran claims it was owed dating all the way back to the Shah's time in power. Terry Waite knows what it's like to spend years living in limbo. The former envoy to the Archbishop of Canterbury spent 4 years in captivity in Lebanon in the 1980s. He was there trying to secure the release of 4 other hostages, and he's been advising the Ratcliffe family.
I said, Nazarene, when you come out, take it as though you're coming up from the seabed.
If you come up too quickly, you get nitrogen in the blood and you get the bends and you become seriously ill. If you come out gently, one step at a time, then you'll be fine. Make your statement to the press, get that off your chest, then go and meet with the family, and then give yourself time away from all the enormous pressures that will be on her at this time.
His advice is rooted in his own experience of reconnecting with a family from whom he had been parted for so long. The Ratcliffe family, like the Waits, have worked tirelessly to secure their loved one's release, and like Nazanin, will also be absolutely exhausted. The main news again. Secretary of State Antony Blinken says he's personally backing President Biden's decision to brand Vladimir Putin a war criminal. In Mariupol, efforts continue to evacuate survivors from the basement of a theatre shelled by the Russians as more than 1,000 civilians sought safety inside. And there's fury in Britain, where P&O Ferries fired 800 shipboard workers and announced plans to replace them with contract labourers. And that is the latest feature story news. Simon Marks reporting.
The chimpanzee spends most of its day in the jungle, carelessly swinging from tree to tree and picking mites off itself, instead of building shelter and teaching itself how to read. This chimp is named Bolo, and researchers at Duke University have shown that he can solve three-dimensional logic puzzles, an impressive feat indeed, until you learn that human children as young as 3 are also able to solve the puzzle. Even a mentally handicapped human is capable of verbal speech, something no chimpanzee has ever been able to accomplish, despite working vocal cords capable of howling in irritation after soiling itself. Chimps have been observed using tools, but their tools are little more than sticks. Even driving and preparing pancakes, tasks we leave to the stupidest, least educated humans, lay beyond the capabilities of the chimp.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
This is Free Talk Live. What happens when you decide you want to go volunteer for a foreign military, specifically Ukraine? We've got some interesting allegations on the way to share with you in the studio tonight. You've got Ian, Matt,
and Bonnie.
We're going to go first to your phone calls and thoughts. So the number, if you want to join the show, is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. And let's go to those phone calls and thoughts. We got Sarah on the line in New Mexico. Sarah, you're on Free Talk Live. Go ahead.
Yes, so the U.S. is threatening China with consequences if they help Russia economically or militarily, and they're not really saying exactly what they're going to do, but there's going to be punishment for China. So,
yeah, I don't even know what they could possibly do. I mean, It's one thing to tell Russians they can't have McDonald's anymore, but another thing to attack the largest supplier of products to the American economy. What are they going to do?
Yeah, and also China can do something way worse in retaliation. They're talking with their ally Russia about creating a monetary system where they can accept the yuan for where Saudi Arabia can accept the yuan for oil. So I mean that would just destroy that would just destroy the dollar.
Okay, I'm okay. Saudi Arabia, I thought that was American ally. So where are they going to always have a money current that's going to trade with China? But I know Syria is in the Russia's bag on their side. North Korea also, and Eritrea out of Africa. They voted for the attack. Eritrea. So, I mean, that's an accent. I know, Eritrea.
I believe it's called urethra. Sarah, it's urethra. Say it.
Well, Sarah, I don't know really if Saudi Arabia has ever been allies with the United States, but they had Xi from China.
Is that how you pronounce his name? Xi?
Or I don't know.
Xi?
I don't know. But they had him come over.
Xi Jinping. Okay. They
had him come over and have a talk for the first time in a long, long time or ever or something. And Russia and China are talking about just stopping, Russia's going to obviously has already stopped selling oil to us, but then they're going to start buying or selling
just to be clear, it was Biden who prohibited Russia from being able to have Russians sell oil to the United States. So it wasn't Russia that stopped selling oil to the U.S. It was Biden that stopped.
So Russia's going to sell gold to China for the yuan, and Saudi Arabia is thinking about selling oil to China for the yuan, which would make it the the yuan petro yuan or whatever, and the dollar would just be destroyed.
It certainly would hurt its position.
Well, and then include Venezuela and Cuba. They're all going to come out under the works and join Saudi Arabia. And Iraq used to be sanctioned against. Well, Iraq was against U.S. and they were sanctioned. And so what I brought up before was that the transitory sanctions. And remember what I said is that if you trade with North Korea and if you trade with Russia now because they're sanctioned, and if you trade with Cuba, then you can't. All these countries will not trade with you. Canada and France and everything. It's called transitory. So this is what I'm explaining. So they're going to punish China and any other country that trades with Russia because they want to, choke them out and make them starve.
Well, good luck to them. I don't know what. Thank you for the call tonight, Sarah. I don't know what they could possibly do to punish China. It's one of the most economically strong countries on the face of the planet. They've got a ton of natural resources.
But let's be realistic. They are still using government-issued currencies to establish their wealth. Those currencies are not the strongest currencies in the world.
I know. I was like, I wish that they would just decide instead of creating their own monetary system, which is just a headline I saw. I don't really know what they mean by that, but I was like, why don't they just use Bitcoin and help everybody else out?
Well, because the central banks of the world cannot abide.
And China hates Bitcoin.
Right. They cannot allow Bitcoin to become so important. So they're going to ignore cryptocurrency as a solution for as long as they possibly can.
Ignoring their cancer will not cure them of their cancer.
The few governments of the world that actually are coming close to or actually embracing Bitcoin are making very wise moves. Now, again, as I said before, I don't support what El Salvador did as far as how they implemented the Bitcoin legal tender.
Making it mandatory and things.
Correct. But El Salvador is still making a really smart move because they don't have a fiat money system in El Salvador. The only fiat they have is the American dollar, and they're not married to it. It's just it's a convenience. That's all. And so actually the story you mentioned, Bonnie, I have here. It's from RT, and it's about what you were talking about, Saudi Arabia now considering selling some oil to China in yuan instead of dollars, citing active talks between the countries. Such a move could further marginalize the petrodollar paradigm that has controlled global financial system for over half a century, placing the dollar's status as the international reserve currency at risk. Now, there has long been talk about this happening, but it's never actually moved forward. And now they're talking again. But now they're actually meeting and having serious discussion about this. This isn't just the wild speculation of, some gold bug or whatever in the United States, or some, precious metals advocate or whatever saying that the dollar hegemony is coming to an end. I mean,
even though they've been right all along too.
Well, I mean, I think I can speak for all of us. We all believe that that's going to happen at some point. But the question is, what is going to kick off its ultimate decline? Now, there's no doubt the value of the dollar is on a decline, but that's always been true since they got rid of the backing of precious metals to the U.S. dollar. It's been going down ever since, and quite dramatically in recent years after the trillions of dollars they printed in the COVID situation.
Right.
So there's no doubt it's getting worse, but at the same time, so is every other central currency.
Yep.
So it's always a race to the bottom of the barrel in the case of fiat monies. So it really would take a move like this of major international countries like China to stop using the dollar for oil payments. That's definitely a major hit to the status of the dollar if that actually happens. China buys over a quarter of the oil exported by Saudi Arabia, meaning that denominating those deals in yuan would significantly boost the international profile of the Chinese currency. Currently, 80% of global oil sales are transacted in dollars, with the Saudis trading exclusively in the U.S. currency since 1974, when Washington offered, and I don't know how you pronounce that capital, Riyadh, security guarantees in exchange for its loyalty to the petrodollar system. So would Saudi Arabia actually cut loose from that particular agreement and then possibly risk the ire of the U.S. Pentagon coming after them in some way, shape, or form? Possible targeting by the CIA? I don't know.
Hey, you know what would really obviate all these morons? The other day I sold somebody, like, I gave somebody a cup of coffee, and they're like, man, this is good coffee. I'm like, yeah, I love this coffee. I just bought a 5-pound bag.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, would you mind offloading some of that? I'm like, yeah, sure. How much do you want? And they said, I'd like a pound. And I said, how would you like to make up to it? What, make up to me for it? And they said, well, do you take Monero? I said, sure, I'll sell you a pound of coffee for some Monero.
Okay.
And you know what they did? They gave me $15 worth of Monero, and I gave them a pound of coffee.
Sweet.
Everybody's happy.
And no one had to know about it until you told the radio audience.
Yeah, tough.
Yeah.
But it worked really well.
Mm-hmm.
And it was what I wanted, and it was what they wanted, and we didn't need government money in the middle of it anyway. And I'm just waiting to see all these dinosaurs go extinct, and I hope it happens in my lifetime. I want to watch it happen.
That would be a gorgeous thing to see.
I just love that about cryptocurrency. It's like you're doing something with it, and you're like, wow, there was no waiting. There was no permission needed. It's just done. Seems too good to be true sometimes.
We continue here. The number, if you want to join us, 603-283-6160. Coming up, more about the so-called mercenaries that are joining over in Ukraine. What's happening to them, allegedly. If you want to weigh in, you can. You can join the show here at 603-283-6160 and take control of the airwaves here on Free Talk Live, 603-283-6160. It is Free Talk Live, and you can bring up anything you want. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
When Monster Hunter International discovers one of Isaac Newton's wardstones being auctioned off, they decide to steal it and use it to destroy the Chaos God once and for all. But a mysterious thief upends their plan, and it soon becomes a race against time as something much older and infinitely more evil awakens in the jungles of South America. Monster Hunter Bloodlines by New York Times bestselling author Larry Correia and Baen Books. Visit monsterhunternation.com for more.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless free market non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Hey, you are going to love the movie Victimless Crime Spree. It's hilarious, heartwarming, and carries a ton of inspiring freedom messages. Feeling down about the lack of liberty in your life? You need to put on this film with some friends and have a good laugh. It's a true story about me and my friends in New Hampshire living free, singing, dancing, and getting arrested. Of course, it's all on video, and the bad guys, the cops, judges, bailiffs, and sheriffs, they all play their part like it's out of a movie or something. You would think we scripted the whole thing, but it's real life. Go ahead and have a watch, and if it's been a while, have another look. I guarantee you'll notice things now that you didn't notice before. And the best part is that you're going to walk away feeling a renewed sense of your own power. You are the master of your destiny, and you will be free in your lifetime. Victimless Crime Spree.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column. That's fff@fff.org.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live. Phones are open if you want to join the show here at 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. And you can join us online anytime you want over at freetalklive.com. We do have feeds for your podcast pleasure. We've got various different feeds, including the full feed, which has the full shows and the digests and whatever else I want to put in there. And then there's also the episodes-only show, or the episodes-only feed, and then the digest-only feed. You can find all of those over at feeds.freetalklive.com. Drop one of them into your favorite podcast client, and you can get the latest episodes of Free Talk Live as they are available directly without having to do anything else. It's pretty sweet. Feeds.freetalklive.com. We go into your calls and thoughts. Mexico, where Janie is on the road. Janie, you're on Free Talk Live.
Hi, guys. My question tonight is atheism and anarchism. So do you think that there's a cognitive dissonance, for example, to be an atheist who is a statist? They look at atheism very logically and can, pick apart.
Unfortunately, your phone's even worse now than it was when I screened the call. I wish that it had gotten better, but
Well, I
it's
think
actually
I
worse.
got what he said. I think he said, do you think there's a cognitive dissonance between someone who's an atheist and a statist?
Yes, I believe that is what... is that what you said, Janie?
Yep, that's correct.
Okay, great. We're going to try our best to answer that here, and appreciate the call tonight. Unfortunately, not a good connection from whatever cell phone provider in Mexico.
I get what he's saying,
Thanks for the call.
because the state is a religion.
Yeah, 100%. Yes,
and many atheists have absolutely no idea about that. They are completely ignorant to the religious aspects of the state and completely unaware of how they are worshiping the state. There are many atheists that can completely see how organized religion is full of it in so many different ways, but they're totally ignorant of the state.
Committing all their faith to a higher power that they believe in.
Mm-hmm.
There's no difference whatsoever.
Yep. I hope that answers the question. Let's go to Richard in New Mexico. You're on Free Talk Live, Richard.
Yes, I'd like to see the United States disband the United Nations in New York City. We're paying the bulk of the expense to keeping the United Nations in New York City, and there's other countries that aren't paying their fair share. China, North Korea, and Russia. They're one of 5 nations that has basically preferred status to veto different countries' gripes.
Don't you think, Richard, that the United States should just simply get out of the United Nations?
Yeah, that's where I thought I was going to begin with, but...
Not just kick them out of New York City, but just leave the organization entirely?
Well, that would be a good idea, too, because I've been in quite a few countries in the world, and a lot of times in the last 60 years, we're supporting a bunch of nations, and they're not paying their national debt to us back. I know we owe trillions of dollars in national debt. Most of it's to China, too, but I just like to see.
Well, I just like to say I don't owe anyone
$0
any debt. Just because some politicians say something about what they want to do doesn't obligate me to their decisions. But thank you, Richard, for your call here tonight.
Yeah, and as far as when I hear about national debt, I think it's not really national debt. It's the Federal Reserve Bank's debt. It's a result of their bad business decisions, and that's a private bank.
Mm.
So the Federal Reserve wants to go out of business or file for bankruptcy, or I don't know how they would do that, but who cares? It doesn't make a difference because it's not my debt.
When you say it's the Federal Reserve's debt, isn't it the United States federal government gang's debt, and the Federal Reserve helps them create it?
Sure, okay, fine, but they made a bad business decision in making that partnership. It's not has nothing to do with me.
Well, I mean, the Federal Reserve has made a great business decision. They can print money from thin air and give it to these politicians who then have to pay it back at interest. Seems like it's a pretty good deal for the Federal Reserve.
Sure, but it's their if they can't get paid back, then it's it was a bad investment.
But they didn't make anything in the first place. It's all just fantasy money.
It is.
So it's no skin off their back. Like if tomorrow everything shuts down, if the federal government completely goes away and the Federal Reserve never gets paid back again, well, they all made a ton of money the whole time. It's not like they're going to go home and have to pay off the debt themselves or anything like that. So it's really
they're not going to miss a meal.
Yeah, there's no loss for them. They got themselves a golden parachute. They'll probably take whatever gold's left in Fort Knox and make a parachute out of it and literally float home happy.
If they didn't already.
Yeah. I mean, again, there's probably no gold left in Fort Knox.
A long time ago.
But yeah, they're going to be just fine if and when the U.S. government implodes.
But that said, I just don't think the debt. I don't think their business debt falls onto the citizenry.
No,
that's a business. They screwed up.
It shouldn't. But unfortunately, people are under this mistaken belief that they are the state, that we are part of the government, and nothing could be further from the truth.
I'm not those guys. I've met them. They're not good people. I wouldn't hang out with them.
They don't want anything to do with us, and I certainly don't want anything to do with them.
You've met who?
The government guys.
Oh, just government guys in general?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, you can't trust them.
I met Federal Reserve guys.
No, there was one named after, I wouldn't say named after me, but sharing a family name with me. Interestingly, that one...
Who works for the Federal Reserve?
He was a Federal Reserve president.
Wow.
He was the president, I think, of Philadelphia.
Huh.
But he was known as a staunch contrarian. He was like the only Federal Reserve president ever thought of as a contrarian. His name is Stephen Roach.
U.S. President Joe Biden didn't help matters by declaring during his 2020 campaign that the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, a.k.a. MBS, should be considered a pariah for his alleged role in the killing of Jamal Khashoggi. Remember the journalist that got murdered?
Heard about that.
That guy? Accusing the Crown Prince of that, said not only violated his human rights, but hurt his feelings. And now that very same Crown Prince is apparently involved in those talks between China and Saudi Arabia about starting to accept the Chinese yuan for oil payments. So they, if Joe Biden had kept his mouth shut about it, then maybe those conversations wouldn't have happened. But all politics is personal on some level, and it will be very interesting to see if this pans out into anything. If China will start to make oil payments again. They're saying here that, according to the numbers, China is a huge customer of Saudi Arabia, with a huge chunk of the amount of oil that Saudi is sending out going to China. Over a quarter of the oil exported by Saudi Arabia. So we'll see if that pans out. Of course, if you want to weigh in here, you can join us. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Again, RT.com reporting here that The U.S. history of grandstanding animosity toward many of the top oil-producing states, from Venezuela to Iran to Russia, has now left it with little space to maneuver as commodity prices and inflation continue climbing with no end in sight. So, you can join us and bring up whatever's on your mind. Coming up, the people that have decided to voluntarily join the military in Ukraine. What are some of them saying? We'll talk about it on the way on Free Talk Live.
Carl Watner, longtime proponent of a voluntary society, died last December. You may have seen his articles published on his website, voluntarist.com, in his newsletter, The Voluntarist, the Mises Institute, or elsewhere over the last 40 years. His newest book, I Must Speak Out, Volume 2, The Best of the Voluntarist, is now available via Liberty Under Attack Publications. This 430-page second volume spans the years of 2000 through 2020 and includes articles by Carl Watner, Hans Hermann Hoppe, Karl Hess, Benjamin Tucker, George H. Smith, Lysander Spooner, Pete Eyre, Joyce Brand, and many others. I Must Speak Out is for the newly initiated, the veteran voluntarist, or anywhere in between. Buy the book now at libertyunderattack.com/voluntarist. For more great content on building a voluntary society and for Carl's extensive archives, check out voluntarist.com.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. U.S. President Joe Biden will speak to Chinese leader Xi Jinping on Friday after Washington warned Beijing not to give support to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. FSN's Nick Harper reports from Washington.
The two leaders have not spoken since November's virtual summit. Even then, relations between the two countries were frosty. President Biden raising concerns of Chinese human rights abuses, aggression towards Taiwan, and trade disputes. This time round, Ukraine will be heavily in focus, more specifically, Xi's relationship with President Putin. Rather than condemn Russia's invasion and impose sanctions, China has, according to US intelligence, been asked by Russia to help, something both Beijing and Moscow deny. Biden's national security advisor, Jake Sullivan, held an intense 7-hour meeting in Rome earlier this week with China's top diplomat, warning of potential implications and consequences should China support Russia's war effort.
With more on that story, here's FSN's U.S. correspondent Simon Marks.
The White House argues that the conversation does not have to be inherently antagonistic, but they say they are not willing to overlook what Secretary of State Antony Blinken insisted today are signs that Beijing may be preparing to replenish some of the weaponry that Russia has already lost on the Ukrainian battlefield. Now, the Chinese have described this whole claim that Russia is seeking weaponry from them as misinformation, and that issue discussed earlier in the week in Rome by National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan and State Councillor Yang Jiechi remained unresolved.
Intense fighting continues in Ukraine, with heavy shelling by Russian forces in the capital Kyiv, as well as the southern port city of Mariupol. Officials from Ukraine and Russia met again for peace talks, but there's been little progress in negotiations so far. According to the United Nations, more than 3 million people have fled the country. A new, more transmissible subvariant of Omicron is spreading throughout Europe and Asia and could cause another surge in coronavirus cases in the U.S., just as all 50 states are lifting mask mandates and other coronavirus restrictions. FSN's Caroline Malone reports from Washington.
Health experts warn widespread outbreaks in Europe are often followed by a surge in the United States. There are vaccines, antivirals and tests to counter any new wave, but vaccine maker Pfizer is asking for emergency authorization for a fourth coronavirus shot for people aged 65 and over in the US.
And Wall Street pulled back from early losses in Thursday trading, despite persistent concerns about the conflict in Ukraine. It was the third straight day of gains for U.S. markets, which have reacted positively to confirmation earlier this week that interest rate hikes are here to stay. From Bureaus Worldwide, this is...
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live, and the phones are open here if you want to join the show. You can. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Here tonight, you've got Ian,
Matt,
and Bonnie.
Coming up in just about 3 months, it's going to be time for Forkfest again. Forkfest, the decentralized libertarian camping festival that happens here in New Hampshire, in the beautiful White Mountains at Rogers Campground. This year, you can mark your calendar for June 27th through July 3rd and join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians to hang out with people for a week in a beautiful location with cool people from the freedom-loving places here in New Hampshire, and celebrate Independence Day as well. Now, it's decentralized, which means there's no ticket cost. So all you need to do to attend is simply reserve your campsite, your RV site, or your motel room with Rogers Campground from June 27th through July 3rd. Now, if you are a doer, then you'll probably want to be a part of this. If you're somebody who wants to create a thing for other people to do or to participate in, that's definitely what we need at Forkfest. So if you like to cook and you think people are going to be hungry, then you should probably cook, and you might make a few bucks doing that.
Yeah, because I can do that, and I have done it, and you make money doing it, and it's great. But then I get lazy, and I don't do it one year, and, people don't eat as well as they do when I'm not there. So if you think that you have something to offer at Forkfest, come and offer it at Forkfest. It's great when people kick in like that. I love it.
Yeah,
I'm going to do karaoke.
Time. Right on.
So she's committing to that, which is pretty cool. I don't think that's been done yet at Forkfest, unless it happened this last year, and I wasn't there, so I don't know. Not that you know everything that happens at Forkfest.
Karaoke scares me, so I've
there's also, you want to have a poker game, bring a poker table, bring some chips, bring some cards. You got to supply the things to do, because there's no central committee who makes decisions about what is and what is not at Forkfest. It's really up to you. Now, if you want to communicate with others who are going to be attending, there are some useful chat rooms, and there's a forum. All of this is unofficial. You can link to those things over at forkfest.party. You'll find them in the top menu there. Forkfest.party to learn more. And again, it's June 27th through July 3rd for the 6th annual Forkfest at forkfest.party. All right, so Matt, you came across a video that I believe I saw the same thing today. Some people are claiming, it's fake. Now,
the war tourists?
Yeah, so this guy sounded very American, and he was saying basically that he had gone down there to volunteer for the Ukrainian Defense Force, right?
Yeah, they're foreign legionnaires, basically. People are coming from all over the world. There's British people going to Ukraine to fight. There's people going to both sides to fight. Everybody's got a dog in the fight. And when you've had 20 straight years of warfare, and you've got an entire generation of people who only understand fighting, and they've all been in it for a long time, and then you take them out of it, well, they want to get back in it. A lot of them want to get back in it. They miss the life. They don't know. They've had a hard time readjusting to life outside of a war zone. And when you throw a war party, they want to go to the war party. So they grab their kit and their armor and whatever else.
They can fight the new Hitler.
And they can fight the bad guys, right? And so they rush off to fight whoever they think the bad guys are. But sometimes there's a lot of other stuff going on in the world, or in the situation, Ukraine wants to be a part of NATO. So what's the best way to, tug at some heartstrings of the populace to get NATO in there? Well, maybe they should have Russia kill a whole bunch of Americans, or have Russia kill a whole bunch of English. So they'll take these guys and they'll shove them right to the front lines, as lightly armored as possible, and say, there you go, guys, go fight the war. And some of these guys are getting up to the front lines saying, whoa, they've taken all my kit from me. I am up here with a gun with 5 rounds in it, and I'm supposed to fight their war for them using. So they're being used as pincushions, basically, for the Russians. And from what you see on that video, he's talking about how just a whole troop of British were wiped out at the next base over from them. And it's really not that hard for me to believe. And there's people trying to get out of it, and the Ukrainians are telling them, if you turn on us, if you turn and try to leave this front, we're going to shoot you in the back. They want them at the front, which makes a lot of sense politically.
Yeah, so it turns out he thought he was going to go over and join the good guys, quote unquote, and guess what?
He's a pawn.
There are no good guys in the global catastrophes and conflicts like this. And turns out
Or
the Ukrainians,
governments.
the Ukrainian gang is just as bad as any other gang. And one of the things he was saying in this video was, if you try to escape, they will stop you at the border, tear up your passport.
Yeah, they're cutting their passports in half.
And send you back into the country so that you cannot get out if that's what you want to do. He says you have to know people who know people, and then they'll like smuggle you out somehow through whatever system.
He said people are getting out in ambulances. They're being driven to the border in ambulances, and it's all cloak and dagger just to leave the country once you get in there.
But yeah, he made it clear that things were not what he thought it was going to be. And he also mentioned the very sparse amount of ammunition that they were handing out, if you could even get a gun, apparently.
Yeah, if you could get one.
Right.
Well, what are you doing at the front lines without a gun? Just
dying, apparently.
Dying? That's sad. That's scary.
It's not sad. It's great. Sorry, wait. Did my opinion just come out? So, I have this, I'm a Darwinist, and I think that the stupid should die. And if you're gonna play stupid games, you're gonna win stupid prizes.
If you want to go work for a government, you're gonna be a human pincushion, right?
I'm
bullet
all
catcher
for it. Please.
But I'm just saying, like, where's even the theater in that they're not even pretending to be killing you at that point? Like,
well, they don't need to have video to make a claim that the Russians killed the American troops on the front line.
35 American troops were bombed by the Russian airplane. Whatever. It's all they care about is the public. It's the publicity of it. They can say the Russians attacked Americans, and then Joe Biden can say, "Well, we're going in there." Next thing you know, you got war profiteers, and it all blows up, and then you have nukes, and we're all in trouble because these fools had too much testosterone, too little brains.
Have you seen the American news media clamoring for a war, for an actual starting a real war?
Oh yeah. Of course. I mean, I thought you were asking if I've seen a documentary.
No. There's footage everywhere of them asking the Biden spokesperson Jen Psaki or whatever to, why aren't you doing this and that? Why don't you create a no-fly zone over Ukraine, which would result in it being violated and a Russian jet being shot down, and then that would be an act of war, and then they would get more ratings, basically. And they haven't gone for it quite yet. The to Biden's credit, they have not yet actually committed to any kind of direct involvement in this conflict.
But we can honestly say Cold War's back on, and at this, I grew up in the middle of the Cold War, and I remember the Cold War, and I remember the fall of the Berlin Wall. It was great, and the vibe and the energy surrounding that happening.
Wouldn't it be great if the U.S. government fell this time during this Cold War?
Man, can we just can we all just manifest that so hard? I'm not, and that's not good enough for me. We're going ham on this manifestation. We're taking down the U.S. government and the Chinese government and the Russian government and the Ukraine government. Awesome? Can we just take them all down? Do they need to exist? They don't.
They're high. It's high past time for them to go away.
It's so archaic.
We don't need them.
Government is an archaic institution. It's completely unnecessary and even bad.
They're
Not
criminal
only is it
enterprises.
It's bad. They're criminal enterprises.
They're murderers. They're killers. They destroy lives. They destroy business, and
they're just unnecessary. Like we have cryptocurrency. We don't need their fake money, funny money. They just aren't helping anybody.
Who was it that said something to the effect of, I'm going to mess up the quote here, but something to the effect of there's no evidence that hardship would cease to exist if governments cease to exist, but if governments go on, it's a guarantee that hardships will absolutely exist.
I've not heard that quote, but I like it.
Yeah, makes sense.
The number here is 603-283-6160. That's because governments force wealth out of people and return nothing. And they just take it like a big tick. The number is 603-283-6160, and I don't think anyone would argue that we need ticks. It's Free Talk Live. On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, I mean, that's really the reason why I amp is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
You can help more people hear the message of liberty by joining Free Talk Live's AMPS program on Patreon for as little as $5 a month. And you'll get access to special perks. Visit amps.freetalklive.com, amps.freetalklive.com.
Is oral health important to you? If you don't like your own teeth, fresh breath, or kissing people, then by all means stop listening. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I became passionate about the product that she created and never want to live without it. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, but I find it does much more. They want you to love My Magic Mud as much as I do, so they're giving you a money-back guarantee plus 20% off. Go to mymagicmud.com and use coupon code FTL20 at checkout. mymagicmud.com, FTL20.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm. The Free State Project has reached its goal of 20,000 liberty lovers who've pledged to move to New Hampshire and get active to achieve liberty in our lifetime. Perhaps you're trying to figure out what part of New Hampshire should be your destination. If so, consider Keene. You'll find more than 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com. Keene is famous for its historic, publicity-generating activism, as well as being the liberty media capital of the world. It's home to freekeene.com, New Hampshire's destination for liberty activism, news, and opinion. For years, we've been compiling over 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com, where you'll learn about some of what's happening here and what makes Keene a great place to live. If you love liberty, you'll probably enjoy anywhere you end up in the Shire. But do your due diligence first. Please visit move.freekeene.com for the full list of over 150 reasons to move to Keene. That's move.freekeene.com. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live, phones are open if you want to join us here in the remaining moments. We have time for you. The number is 603-283-6160. Tonight you've got Ian, Matt,
and Bonnie.
You can join us online over at freetalklive.com and enjoy the features we have there for you. And that, by the way, includes our chat server. It's a Matrix server, which means it's open source. It means it's self-hosted. That means we run the thing. So there's no big tech mega corporation that's involved at all. You can go and interact with other Free Talk Live listeners around the clock over at chat.freetalklive.com. That's actually where you go to get the step-by-step instructions for how to join the server at chat.freetalklive.com. We're going to go to your calls and thoughts. Rudy is first up, listening in Arizona to K-Talks. Go ahead, Rudy.
Hi, guys. The other guy in the studio said that he thought that Ukraine had been at war for 20 years. I'm kind of curious what he means by that.
No. The United States has been at war for 20 years.
Oh, yeah.
The United States has produced an entire generation, literally an entire generation, 20 years worth of human beings who are used to the idea that war is normal.
More than one generation, really.
More than one generation, for sure.
Yeah.
But just in the Middle East, last 20 years straight.
Yeah. I was wondering if you guys heard about Wally, W-A-L-I, the Canadian retired sharpshooter, sniper, that he went to Ukraine. This guy's got it over 2,000-meter kill. It took 10 seconds for the bullet to get there. Think about that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep. I know. I'm familiar with the shot. I don't know who fired it, though.
You're saying this guy got that shot in Ukraine or prior to going to Ukraine?
You got it in Afghanistan.
Okay.
He was a member of the team that this guy got the longest shot, 2,240 meters.
Yeah.
It's insane.
It was over a mile.
So do we know anything about his experience in Ukraine, or were you just bringing up that he went there?
Yeah, I think he's First Nation. He saw what was happening in Ukraine, and he told his wife, "Baby, I gotta go." And she goes, "No, just go." He's good. He went there to help the people of Ukraine defend their freedom.
But there's really wasn't freedom to defend in Ukraine, so he's really just helping the Ukrainian government.
Isn't that when the Russians invaded the country? Isn't that an attack on?
Well, just because the Russians invaded didn't mean the Ukrainian people were free prior to that. I mean, it's always in the media presented as though, one side's the freedom side and the other side's not. If I recall correctly, we looked at the Economic Freedom of the World Index, and Russia actually ranked higher on freedom at least in economic freedom than the Ukraine country did. Or Ukraine did. So, I mean, if anything, Russia's got more freedom than Ukraine.
Yeah, but they're the ones that invaded.
Well, did they?
Didn't the U.S. go into Ukraine in 2014 and install a shadow government? It's not like those people voted for those people.
No, that didn't happen?
No.
No? Well, what happened then in 2014?
You're talking about the Maidan... It's really complicated.
I'm sure it is.
We don't have enough time. But what was I going to say?
So you don't think the CIA had anything to do with the coup that transpired in 2014? No,
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know, but I know that there were people that were influencing what was going on there.
Mm-hmm.
But you had said something about Ukraine wanting to join NATO. They can't. No one can join NATO if there's ever a dispute on the border of the country.
Mm-hmm.
So as long as Russia took Crimea over, Ukraine could never get into NATO.
What about the Donbass regions of Ukraine that ostensibly voted for independence from Ukraine back in 2014? Do you believe that those regions have been attacked by the government in Kyiv?
I think that Putin is a madman. That's what I think.
But
that doesn't answer the question.
But the guy in Kyiv is totally sane?
Oh, you mean the president?
Yeah.
I think he's got a big job on his hands. He's I don't know. I don't know what's going on, but I know that.
Okay, you don't know what's going on.
If they attacked us, we would fight back, wouldn't we?
If they attacked us, when you say they, you mean the Russian government?
Anyone.
Sure, I think a lot of Americans would be willing to defend their own home and their own neighbors and friends and family if they were actually attacked. I think that's true. Yeah.
I think the question is, why did this whole thing start? Because I think that the Western media wants to paint it as Russia had no reason to go into Ukraine and they just went in there because they hate freedom, and the Ukrainians are like, whoa, why is this happening? We love freedom and we want our freedom back. And I just don't think that's really how, it's not that black and white. And the idea of people from Canada leaving their wives and going and fighting for either one of these governments is really sad to me, not heroic. And wars destroy families and lives. People should be with their kids and grandkids and wives and not going and helping other governments hurt other governments and their people. It's just, I don't know.
How about the Russian soldiers?
A lot of them don't want to be doing this, and they said that, I remember there was a quote where they were saying, we don't know who to shoot, they all look like us. So, I mean, it's even a travesty that some of them are being told to go there, but, I mean, if you sign up for, it's like play stupid games, win stupid prizes. They signed up for the military, so...
If you believe in the government and you are in the military or with the government, you guys really don't like governments at all. I just heard you say that.
Yeah, no, why would you like a government? I mean, there's sickos.
Mobs.
Maybe because for, 20,000 years, mankind has figured out that we need somebody to be in charge.
Well, maybe it's time we don't have a revolution and instead we have an evolution.
Well, why don't you, if you need somebody to tell you how to live, you should hire somebody to tell you how to live. I mean, some people probably do it for free. You probably don't even have to pay them.
I'm saying that this is how mankind has worked it out. This is what we've got.
No, that's not how mankind worked it out. Mankind has been ruled by a bunch of despots for thousands of years under the threat of violence, and they are too afraid to actually stand up and do anything about it because the despots run the schools, they indoctrinate people, and they have them constantly under the threat of violence, and you think that that's okay?
Well, that's why the American representative democracy was the first democracy since ancient Greece. We're the ones that started this self-government thing.
This isn't self-government.
Still didn't work because we're still not self-governed.
Self-government is autonomy. Self-government is the ability to make your own decisions for yourself without having some psychopath throw a gun in your face.
I wouldn't say the way that the Romans had their government was ideal or what I want to live under either, and I don't think people who were alive 200 years ago can decide how I should live my life.
Well, we're not under a monarchy. We're not under
I don't care what we're under. I don't want to be under anybody.
I don't want to be under a republic.
Why should anybody be able to tell me what to do, Rudy?
I know, Ian, you've always had a problem with authority. It shows.
Authority is a total fantasy concept. There's no such thing. Are human beings created equal, or are some people more equal than others?
All I know is that enjoy your minority status in the world.
He doesn't want to answer.
You don't want to answer the question. Do you believe that some human beings are better than others by birth?
What a foolish question. No, I believe. You're better than Hitler. I know that.
Okay,
well, that's a good point.
So you're saying that human beings are born equal. So then, where does authority come from? If we're all born equal,
all men are created equal. Everybody's here because two people made love, right?
Mm-hmm. And authority has nothing to do with love. It, in fact, is the opposite of that. So how is it that if you believe in authority, you said you do, how is it that it is created? If we are all equal at birth, how does that happen?
I don't know if I said I believe in authority. There is something. There's a pecking order, right?
That's authority.
You're just talking about violence.
Yeah, you're literally just talking about violence.
No.
And whoever can get away with threatening someone else is going to be the leader.
Thanks for the call tonight, Rudy. I appreciate it. I told Dave Ridley I'd get him on here in the remaining moments. Dave, you're on Free Talk Live. Go ahead.
Yeah, so one of the things that's striking about this current sort of nuclear crisis is that it's basically worse than the Cuban Missile Crisis, but people are not really doing much to get ready for it. I mean, some preppers are, but...
We lose them.
So the one simple thing that you can do is there's a free book that was published by, it's called considered the Bible of nuclear war knowledge, if you want to know what it's actually like to have a nuclear war. The Bible of nuclear war is called Nuclear War Survival Skills. It was written in the 80s and has never really been improved on, unfortunately, very much. But it has been... It has been proven to be true over the years. It's been examined by many people. And what were you going to say, Bonnie?
I was going to say, how did the guy who wrote this get that knowledge? Did he live through nuclear war or something?
There's never been
a nuclear bomb? There has been
With
nuclear bomb.
With the exception of the bombs against
Hiroshima?
Japan.
Yeah, right.
His name is Creston Kearney. He died a few years ago. But you can get the book for free. Just Google Nuclear War Survival Skills, and that will correct many of the myths. It will give you some hope. But it'll also scare you.
Hope sounds good right now. Thank you, Ridley, for the call tonight. It's Dave Ridley from RidleyReport.com. See you tomorrow night online in the meantime at freetalklive.com. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
This is the Liberty Radio Network, broadcasting the latest liberty-oriented audio